Andy W. It's like he's about to start the Miguel fight.
Mm-hmm. So we find Riddell has been tied up, and they're trying to find out from Riddell where the Dragoons are. What happened to them? Why are they not here? And Riddell wasn't really around. She's the daughter, but she's not always in the manor. So she legitimately doesn't know. And then we have to come rescue her.
Yeah, Riddell is just a poor, unfortunate soul. She's just so unlucky in life. I feel sorry for her.
Yeah, especially when we learn a little bit more about her backstory coming up. Just a series of unfortunate events that happened to Riddell. She does get a slightly better ending, though.
Yeah, the Orcha fight is pretty consistent, but it can vary quite a bit, because sometimes Orcha will go early and use red elements to screw up your blue elements on the field. It can be a mess, but generally it's either you lose time or you don't, and he's not very dangerous.
Got a good start from Andy W. Got the White Knight out pretty early. Anti-Black went on to Lynx.
Nice.
So don't have to worry about dealing with not being able to use Diminish. So you can see Andy W buffing up the words are hard. White Knight here and making sure to be very careful about any potential crits. This is one fight you don't actually want to stamina push on, because if you get a crit, you want to immediately adjust. So if you stamina push and you crit and then immediately follow it with a 3, you can put yourself in trouble. So it's very recommended you hit carefully. First couple attacks here for Andy W you don't have to worry about quite as much, but especially as Miguel gets closer to that HP threshold, you'll probably see Andy W slowing down those attacks just to make sure.
Yes, the Orcha went down, no problem. Pretty good fight for Superhandi.
Andy W's in a pretty good spot. There haven't been any crits. Actually using a glide hook. His AP roll is good enough he can finish off Miguel before the meteor shower, it looks like. Yeah, there we go. Nice audible from Andy W. That's very good AP counting. That's not only paying attention to the health value, but keeping track of Miguel's AP at the same time, which is something I'm not good at. So, good job by Andy.
Yeah, so coming up on Superhandi's screen, there's a chance that, well, Harley is going to have this fight where she's going to solo all the enemies, because she's strong enough to do so. But depending on whether or not she misses or she gets interrupted will determine how much time she loses. But I really like this fight. I think it's very satisfying.
It's nice because you get to see her level 7 tech. Since Harley leaves the party early, they kind of give you her level 7 here just so you can see it before she goes away. See Lunaritic. If she has extremely high magic, you can actually use her level 5 for this. But I've only seen that a few times while testing, never during a run. And I don't actually remember what the exact magic threshold was for that. Probably want to test that later, because we can probably add that into the notes. But you see, she gets a pretty good start here. And that should be enough to clear the field. If she has very low magic, this will actually not kill all of the enemies. But as long as she's not very close to minimum rolls, this will usually just clear them all out instantly. So in a few instances where getting a large enemy formation isn't too big of a deal, because as long as she can get that attack off before any of them move, doesn't waste any time by having more enemies.
Yeah, those guards have about 350 to 400 HP, and that Lunar Redic attack, I did about a little over 400 for them. She was set.
So now we get Grobik, the harder of the 3 fights we have to do in a row here. This guy's actually kind of a pain casually. It's got high defense, can do a lot of damage, has some nasty attacks, but White Knight is king.
Yeah, and this is the White Knight's last fight. We don't see the White Knight after this anymore. I always like Grobek's fighting stance. It's like he's dancing to the music.
Yeah. So we got Miguel for Closetowar.
Yeah, all three runners were able to avoid the anti-black on Harley. So it's nice.
Yeah, that's it seems like he anti-blacks Harley more than he should for a 1 in 3 chance. We'll put it that way. So having all three of them miss it is nice. He seems to have the desire sensor as well when you're on a good run. He'll hit Harley with it. Miguel was a big troll.
Yep.
Getting a pretty normal Grobek fight from Superhandi. Not getting any of the crits that we really want to see, so it's taking a little bit longer. This fight can be very different depending on how many crits you get. Grobek's got a lot of HP, so you got a lot of opportunity for them. White Knight has a slightly higher crit rate, so you do see crits pretty reliably, but sometimes White Knight just doesn't want to behave, you know?
Yeah, it looked like Superhandi went for a backup for heal all because Lynx was close to getting knocked out. Wants to give every opportunity to get more strength and HP on characters. Yeah, it was a good decision because Haircutter would have knocked out Lynx and can potentially also knock out the White Knight if he has low enough HP.
Mm-hmm. So Closetowar just finishing up. Miguel fight here should be fine. Also recognizing AP is good enough that he can glide hook and finish off with the White Knight. That's pretty much the perfect fight from Closetowar. Andy W as well. You only really saw Superhandi having to struggle with it a little bit, but recovered it pretty nicely. So now we've got both of them moving into the post-Miguel story dump. And I'm curious, I think Lynx has high enough strength to get the quick kill on the double fights after Grobek here. So if we get good APs, we could see a nice time gain for Superhandi here.
Yeah, all you need is 33 strength, and for optimal 34 strength for the Keetketchum fight. And Superhandi's got more than enough for that.
Yeah, that Grobek fight dragged on a little bit more than you'd like to see. Just White Knight was very stubborn, didn't seem to want to crit much.
Yeah.
Usually against Grobek you'll see a couple, but just didn't get very much good luck on the damage rolls there for Superhandi. But
He got through the fight though. Yeah, 35 strength.
so the perfect fight here, and requires a pretty good luck on some AP, is you either risk it or you do the Eagle Eye first, but it looks like we're just going to go for the Eagle Eye. It's probably the smart call. And then you 3-3 glide hook. And if Helio has the worst AP roll, you can get the glide hook off before it gets turned, but it's not very common to get that.
Yeah, the Giot has an attack called Hot Edge, which is kind of slow, but if that hits Sprig, then it'll knock her out. But that's fine, because Sprig has done her job splendidly, so yeah, no more need for Sprig. But the general melee attacks are a bit faster than seeing Hot Edge.
And Superhandi actually going for an alternate strat there, using Arrow Blaster and then finishing off with attacks. Glide Hook is a pretty lengthy animation, so if you don't get the interrupt before the Helio gets a turn, I actually am not familiar if that's faster or not.
Yeah, I've always used the Arrow Blaster technique, unless I had over 33 strength. It's pretty safe, and if Harley has a lot of magic, then it just makes the fight that much more safer.
So Turns out this enemy has got some self-repairing techniques, and we're running away. But we already know this is a dead end because we visited this tower before. So we're going to get trapped, we're going to have to fight again, and then we're going to get rescued by someone unexpected. It'll be fun.
It's also a nice break for the runners. There are a few times in the run where you can go and take a break, get up and stretch, and maybe use the restroom. This is like a 55-second sequence where they don't have to do anything.
Yeah, all of this text auto advances until this fight starts. It's really nice. Alright, can we get the good AP roll?
Oh yeah, as PH mentioned, if you look at the Giot, the machine, you can see a giant face with a nice mustache and goatee combo.
Okay, we did not get the good AP roll. What the heck? Absolute worst AP roll. The Giot is an interesting enemy. It's not a full boss, but I think it's flagged as a mini boss. I don't think it can go immediately. It's just one of those enemies, one of those fights you talked about earlier where you can gain some time here, but it's most frequently you're just going to lose time.
Also, the Giot has a chance to drop a screw. It is a rare drop. And if they do get the screw drop, it'll save a little bit of time in a menu coming up. I think we only got Mithril so far, but you get two chances at it.
So now we're running away, but we're up on the balcony, and the whole plan is this thing can't use a ladder, right? So we're safe for now, but it grabs onto the chandelier. What are we gonna do? We got some time to think about it. Corporate, what are we gonna do?
There's always the window.
Yeah, true. But our unexpected savior, Grobik, appears. And wait a minute, wasn't he just fighting us? Why is he helping us?
He only respects the strong.
Yeah, Grobik is fun because he follows us down here and he says he was basically explains that he's only following their orders because they were strong, but we're stronger than they were and him, so now he's gonna follow us. There's another instance of us not really having a choice. He's just gonna join our party.
Yeah, that's loyalty right there.
And as somebody in chat is pointing out, nice little callback to Chrono Trigger jumping through the stained glass window. This is another instance where if he joins the party and if you do not put him into your party, he will walk away nice and slowly. Even though it takes an extra menu to then replace him again later, it's actually a few seconds faster to let Grobik join your party.
Yeah, so we just, on Superhandi's screen, we just finished using Sprig. And during this screen for Grobik, we're not going to put him in the party, we're going to put Karsh. We're going to hope Karsh has at least 30 strength. It'll make the fight coming up a little easier. But Sprig has done a good job.
Sprig can go rest now. If we believe Harley that Sprig is an old woman and Harley wasn't just being rude, then, you know, Sprig gets some well-earned rest now.
Yep.
So now we're going to continue onwards the Master Immune quest. Because there is another Masamune in this world. And Karsh has his own background and the reason why he became a Deva and why he throws his entire being into becoming a Dragoon. And we're going to learn a little bit about that as we try and get Master Immune. But this Dreamer's Scarf item that we've got is fantastic. It's one of the nice benefits of doing this side quest is you get a Dreamer's Scarf as well.
Yeah, the Dreamer's Scarf. That's a very underrated item, casually. I never gave a thought to it, but it's so useful in the speedrun.
I don't think we explained what it does, but it's an accessory that doesn't actually give any stats, but your character will start with 1 element level, which is how against Giot their Superhandi was starting off with a Eagle Eye without having to attack with Hurley first. And we get a couple more of those throughout the run. I think we wind up with 3 overall by the end, and we wind up distributing them so that our support characters can cast their spells instantly, which saves AP and lets us push some faster kills onto enemies.
Yeah, I think it's 2, but yeah, a lot of the fights in the end game will avoid enemy AP starts that are bad because you have the Dreamer's Scarf. So you can just immediately cast an Eagle Eye, strengthen, and then the fight can go underway without having to, build it up normally by attacking. But so where Superhandi is, the Giot was guarding a room in Viper Manor, or a door, and if you were to go back there and go up the side, there'd be a treasure chest, and then there'd be a note saying, "We took it. Bring Karsh to the Isle. Sincerely, Salt and Pepper," something like that.
Yep.
And so that's what would prompt you to bring Karsh here to start the Dario side quest.
And we learn about how Dario and Karsh grew up together, friendly rivals, learning to use swords and fight together. I always love watching them practice swinging an axe against a sword like that. It just looks so silly. And Glenn in the background, the younger brother.
I always feel sad that Riddell does not get a portrait. Everybody else gets little children portraits, but not her.
Yeah.
Because they ran out of budget for it.
So in this instance, it's not that Dario was the better swordsman that made Karsh jealous, which it is implied that he is, though. It's that both Karsh and Dario had a crush on Riddell, and Riddell's winds up marrying Dario.
Well, you gotta respect Karsh for, being the bigger man and not letting it get to him.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he's such a good character, and he's a nice foil for, foil's the word, but a nice mirror for Radius, because they have kind of similar stories.
Kind of trying to deal with his own darkness, but
Yep.
we're this Masamune side quest, you might think you know what's going to happen, but maybe not quite. You're gonna get teased a little bit here because we're once again gonna have this story split into 2 parts, because Salt and Pepper are explaining what they think happened, and then we're gonna have to fight them, and then Karsh will tell them what actually happened.
We see Andy W. going through the sewers. I'll keep an eye on that to see if he runs into any trouble, but so far it looks like it's smooth sailing.
Yeah, and that chest I was talking about earlier when Superhandi was in the sewers, there's a magic seal down there, which the seals are the best accessories. They give +5 to magic or strength. And before Evil Ash and Andy W came through and started really optimizing the route, we used to use Frog Prince a whole lot more, rely on elements a lot more, and that magic seal is fantastic for our magic users. But now that we've routed out most of the Frog Princes, not necessary to pick it up anymore, which is nice because it's a little bit of a sidetrack, but also it's such a pain to get in there without getting into a fight.
Yeah, so this is the final Salt and Pepper fight, and it's also kind of the most dangerous. I've had a rough fight with them, easily enough. If they gang up on somebody like Karsh or Harley, they can knock them out if they use their fierce attacks. It's kind of rare because they will distribute their damage well enough. But this fight we're going to power up Karsh because he's green elemental innate, and Salt and Pepper are yellow, so they'll deal more damage against each other. And
But Eagle Eye is green, and then use the Arrow Blaster to add green to the field.
we might see Axial Axe before. There we go.
It's a nice strategy. You don't have to equip anything at Karsh because we only need him for this fight. Depending on his strength, you might give him the strength accessories for this fight. If he's got high enough, you don't really need to give it to him. He'll be fine without it. But if he's low, you definitely want to give him all the strength accessories before this fight.
Yeah, this is another fight that, if Lynx is strong enough, you can save a little bit of time. Normally, Karsh is the one who finishes off Pepor here, but if Lynx is strong enough, he can do it. Oh, misses. Misses.
Karsh should still be able to finish it here. Yeah, there we go. So then, after we finish that, Karsh is like, you bunch of idiots. You really think that's what I would do? You think I'd kill Dario because I was jealous? And he tells the story of what actually happened because he never really thought about it. And Salt and Pepper apologize. Like, we didn't really think that you would. We're just scared. You never talked about it. We wanted to know the truth.
This is why communication's important. Yeah, I saw Superhandi, he got a stone vest, which is a rare drop.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it'll be allow him to save a little bit of time. Because if you have the resources, you need I think it's a fang, an extra fang. You can craft one, either the stone mail or the stone vest. But if you get it as a drop, it's just a nice little time save.
So now we have met every requirement we need to fight Dario except for one. We need Riddell in our party. So despite the sidetrack of going to get the Master Immune, we need to go back and do just a little bit more story because we need the Devas and Riddell to join our party before we can go fight Dario. So even though we just went out of our way to do a whole bunch of stuff to set this up, we are doing it in this order just because it makes the world map movement better. There's less backtracking to do it like this.
Yeah, so coming up, we're going to go to Hermit's Hideaway and go through some events. But eventually, we're going to get Marcy in our party. And depending what her magic strength value is, will determine how quick the Dario fight will go, which we'll go into that later. So I always like guessing what her magic stat will be, but it could be anywhere from, I believe, 17 to 27. I've gotten 27 once in a run, and it's amazing.
27 is a beautiful thing when it happens. Dario just falls over.
Just like one Frog Prince, one Ice Blast, you're gone. You're done.
I got 27 once while testing initial routing stuff when we still picked up the Magic Seal. Ooh. And she one-shot Dario with Frog Prince with 27 on the Magic Seal. It was beautiful. Ooh, Evil Ash says that he's seen 16 once. Ooh. So I guess that's our new minimum. But yeah, give your guesses. What do you think? If you want Superhandi to do well, definitely want to be guessing on the higher end.
Yeah, I think the average is around 22, 23, 21.
Yeah, that's pretty normal to see something around there. And again, like we said, magic points are far more valuable than strength. That's why 27 is the high end for her. And we're already up to the point where you can see high 30s on Lynx and strength.
And it's a shame because we're going to also put Riddell in our party. And normally she has a much higher magic stat, something like above 25. And I wish we could create a different alternative to the Dario fight using Riddell. Sadly, not yet. But maybe one day.
The problem is his AI is a little bit biased towards Riddell. If she's alive, there's a higher chance he's going to attack her with physical attacks than anybody else. Which is partially why the way it's routed out currently exists. Because even if we had a good strategy, it'd be hard to keep her alive through the first section of the fight. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. The Dario fight is like beautiful to watch. It's so well choreographed. So shout out to all the planners who figured it out. Like I think they did an amazing job. It's so satisfying to do the Dario fight.
It started off with a pretty good idea. It's some pretty wonderful AI manipulation, But I was never really able to make it consistent. It wasn't until Andy and the others, or Evil Ash, I think, was before Andy, before people really started coming through and going in and breaking down the route, finding backup strats, that they really figured out how the Dario fight worked and how to make it consistent. So big ups to the people who came through and really optimized the route, because Dario was just scary before. You could get through, but sometimes the stamina refresh just didn't work, and depending on how you set it up, you could wind up in a really bad spot. But they've got a good understanding of how it works now and able to make it pretty consistent for the most part. This is one of my favorite parts of the game. Harley is because not just we're being sad and thinking about Kid in the context of the speed run, where we have abandoned her at every opportunity, so that's a little bit of a strange tone, but Harley is thinking about leaving. And if you have Starkey in your party, there's an extra little scene there where Starkey walks up to her while she's standing on the edge of the boat and goes, "Harley, why are your eyes leaking?" And it's fantastic. Just a cute little moment. And it would be required if you were to do the no Master Immune route, because you'd have to recruit Starkey early as possible to get the gun for Norris. And you'd have to see that little extra dialogue of Starkey trying to cheer up Harley and failing.
All right, last chance to get your guesses in for at least Superhandi for Marcy's magic. Feel like it. Yeah, we get a whole bunch of characters. General Viper, Fargo, Marcy, and Zoa. Trying to replace Harley.
Yeah, and if you picked up Zoa earlier, this is where you'd get Karsh. But getting Karsh and doing all that stuff before we come here just winds up being better for routing. Did you see it? What is it?
Hold on.
Ooh, 19 according to Handy in chat. That's not great. Okay. I mean, we can make it work.
Yeah.
We can kill it. We can kill Dari even with 16. It just takes longer.
Right.
Hopefully, as we level up, Marcy will continue to gain some magic, because we've routed out most of her spell casts, but there's a few points after Dario where we want her to do high damage. And there's a little bit of a gap there, so if she can gain some magic ups, it'll be nice. But Marcy has mostly been routed out except for the Dario fight.
Mm-hmm.
She is the only reason this fight works and the reason why we can get it as soon as we can. That's really important, because the next thing we need to do story-wise, we need to fight all 6 dragons. And those are tough fights, especially since we skipped so many side quests. Having the Master Immune will automatically crit against the dragons. And it has just a super high attack power. So being able to get it before we fight the dragons is a huge deal. And Marcy is the only reason we can get it before we fight the dragons.
Yeah, and if people were paying attention, a while ago we purchased about 21 Ice Blasts. And you might think that's a bit excessive, but if Marcy's magic is kind of on the low side, like below 18, you kind of end up filling up her whole grid with Ice Blasts.
Yeah.
For the coming fight.
It's one of those things where, selecting the 16 or whatever you need is more inputs than just selecting 21. Because we've got so much money, and we're going to do that here with the turn elements that we need. We need some extra eagle eyes, we need some other stuff. We're just going to buy 11 of all of those. It's just faster. One of the nice things about not doing the Marbule side quest, though, is a lot of people would think the Marbule side quest is required because you need to fight the Black Dragon to get the Black Seal. But if you completely ignore it, if you never start the Marbule side quest, and you come here and the Black Dragon's still sleeping, it just gives you the Black Seal. And this is probably because the Marbule side quest is missable. If you do not start it before a certain point and then you advance the story, you can no longer go back and start it after that point. So this is sort of a safety in case you didn't do the Marbule Rock Opera side quest. But on top of not doing that whole Rock Opera side quest, it skips one of the more dangerous fights in the game. The Black Dragon is scary.
I haven't fought it in so long. I have no idea how difficult it could be. But yeah, normally if you fight it, you can steal an item, which makes Dario a lot safer of a fight. But we didn't do that. We're not going to do that. So for those who haven't seen the Dario fight, you're in for a real treat. No, I always like seeing it.
And yeah, as somebody is mentioning in chat, the side quest is tricky because you can be exploring and say you don't want to help, but if you talk to Nikki, you've started the side quest. And then even if you leave after starting the side quest and not doing it, you get to here and you can't get the seal from the Black Dragon. You have to go back and finish the entire Rock Opera side quest to get the Black Seal. Since you started it, the side quest is open. So if you want to skip the entire Rock Opera in your casual playthroughs, when you finish the SS Invincible, the second one with the casino, do not go back to talk to Nikki on the ship, and you can completely skip it.
It looks like Andy W and Closetowar are having pretty good fights. And again, the gap is kind of closing in. But they've been pretty solid on their execution for all their fights and menuing so far. It's nice to see that they're still close.
Yeah, they're having a close race, but Handy is still pretty significantly in the lead.
But with the 19 magic, Superhandi is going to have to rely on burning Dario. And before we mentioned that the difference between Fire Pillar and Inferno, the red elements, we did not get the Inferno drop. So there's only going to be a 20% chance that we're going to be able to burn Dario. If you can burn him, that fight will go a lot smoother, a lot quicker, because we'll be doing more damage to him. But then you can see significant time loss compared to the other two runners, depending on what they get for Marcy.
Yeah, if ADW and Closetowar get high magic Marcy, this could be a difference of a couple minutes.
Yeah.
If the burn doesn't land. Just because we're going to have to equip so many Ice Blasts. And if the burn doesn't land, we're going to cast all of them.
Pretty much.
I once got to a point where I had to use String Phone and Cat's Cradle because I was out of Ice Blasts.
Yeah, I've had to use String Phone plenty of times, but never Cat's Cradle. Never that bad.
Yeah, Superhandy's not going to have to worry about that one. Has higher than absolute minimum magic, so won't be quite that bad, but this is an interesting fight. And a lot of people, if you try to look up how to do this fight, because even casually, if you do this later in the game, it's a pretty difficult fight. The general strategy that's proposed on the internet is do the Marbule side quest, steal the black plate from the dragon, which makes you immune to black damage, and then
dash and gash.
Just equip one of your party members with the black plate and give them a bunch of white elements, and just keep hitting him with white elements because he will always counterattack with a black element. Dario will always counterattack with the opposite element of what you use on him, and it's always the same element depending on the color. So you can kind of cheese him out if you have the black plate by making him just keep healing one of your party members the entire time while you chip away at his health. But the important thing is that he also counters with some debuffs depending on what you do. If you cast a blue, he counters with, I think, his Numble. It's like an evasion, if you cast with red, he does Numble, which is evasion down.
Blue is
yeah, and if you cast blue, he uses Weaken, which lowers your physical attack. But the important thing is that his counterattacks use his turn and reset his AP value. So if you keep hitting him with blue elements, it's the same sort of thing, where instead of even having to worry about having a black plate, he'll keep using a debuff that does no damage.
Yeah, so a lot of the fight is about exploiting Dario's AI, which works in our favor. It's really, really fun to see. But before that, we get more backstory. What really happened with Karsh and Dario?
Mm-hmm. So it wasn't so much that Karsh was jealous of Dario, which is the whole idea they're building up. Since we learned about what happened with Radius, you're supposed to think that Karsh was jealous of Dario, and that he picked up the Masamune and then killed him. But It's interesting that they show the like malicious spirit within the Masamune as Jirai. It's an interesting choice. But Dario, he's overcome by the negative feelings of the Masamune, but his negative feelings aren't as strong. So even though he's winning, he holds back because he doesn't actually want to kill Karsh. And he
He's being compelled, but he's fighting. Good guy, Dario.
So then, of course, Dario, barely holding back, is just like, kill me, Karsh. Don't do it. Because not just does he not want to kill Karsh, he's worried about what will happen if he leaves and like goes after Riddell. So Karsh knocks him off into the ravine, assumes he's dead. Lynx come up and starts manipulating. You're so weak, you couldn't deal with this. Don't tell anyone what happened, I'll take care of it. And then he...
Yeah, notice that Lynx can pick up the sword just fine. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Get possessed.
So now, turns out that Dario didn't die. He wound up in this cottage where somebody found him. They were helping him recover. And he was fine until he saw Riddell and his memories came back. The Masamune returned to him, and now the evil is taking him over once again. And we have to try and fight Dario and free him from the evil influence of the Masamune. So this is a very important fight to set up. We need several things to happen. We need to get some elements on all of our characters. Let him use some physical attacks so that we can refresh his AP count fully. And then we're gonna sacrifice Riddell, basically.
She does a good job. She does her job.
So yeah, we're gonna start with the fire pillar from Lynx. Try and fish for this burn. Can't see if it actually landed until we get a turn and we can target him. So cross our fingers. Hope that we got the burn. Did we get it?
It's hard to see. Let me check.
I don't think we got it.
Okay.
Which isn't the end of the world, just means it can take longer. And then we're going to use Riddell to let people get some stamina back, and then use Weak-Minded, because it's going to lower his magic defense, but he will also counterattack with this Conductor Rod here, which is going to blow her up. Look at the damage this does. Complete overkill.
Yep.
Almost 700 damage to 270 max HP. Just
and for those who don't know, Dario is pretty much a super boss, so even if you show up later in the game, that Conductor Rod is still going to tear through your HP like it's tissue paper.
Mm-hmm. So now we've cast Magnify. We've cast Genius onto Marcy. We have the Weak-Minded on him, which lowered his magic defense. And now we're going to try and set the field blue. We used another red element on him, so he'll counterattack with a blue. So he helps us make the field blue, which is a really nice strategy. And then we're going to waste some AP here, because we want both Marcy and Lynx to be negative stamina at the same time. This is something we haven't mentioned since the beginning of the game, but if all of your characters are negative at the same time, and then the enemy takes a turn, you get something called a stamina refresh, where it'll advance the AP until the enemy takes their turn, but you'll gain more stamina back than the amount of AP used. And if we set this up correctly, this Frog Prince will do a bunch of damage, won't kill him, and we should get enough AP back to be alright. Ooh. That was a 1 stamina refresh. There's a backup for this, and it's partially why even with high magic, you still want to equip Marcy with some low-level blue elements, but Superhandi is actually risking it and just going to defend. And Lynx does get taken out. That's the one you want him to hit. So Superhandi taking a risk there, and it pays off on the 50-50. And now we're going to use the counterattack mechanic. Marcy will attack 6 times, use an Ice Blast, and he will counterattack with Weaken.
Yep.
Then she'll attack 6 times. use Ice Blast, and he will counterattack with Weaken. Start off with the strong ones while we still have all the buffs rolling. Weak-minded is wearing off. Magnify is wearing off. Genius is wearing off. So you'll see the damage will drop off significantly here in a moment. And Dario's still got quite a bit of HP. So I hope you enjoy hearing the sound of Marcy kicking Dario in the shins and slapping him, because you're going to hear it quite a bit.
It's pretty great.
But to give an idea of how much time you can save on having high magic on Marcy, almost maximum magic Marcy will make Dario in this weakened crouching state after the Frog Prince. Even with a burn, without the burn, he'll be weakened after a single Ice Blast. And if you get the absolute best scenario, high magic, get the burn, you can do a Frog Prince and a single Ice Blast to take him out. So all this extra time that's being used, slapping Dario, casting an element, having him counterattack with an element, is just potential time loss. So if the other two racers can get high magic Marcy, this is a good point for them to potentially gain a bunch of time here.
Yeah, and back earlier in the run, there was a chance to get a Skygen ring, which would improve their magic output. So if one of the runners had one of those, then even a lower magic Marcy could still do enough damage to make sure the fight doesn't last too long. But unfortunately, no one got that. They're just toughing it out with a single magic ring and 2 Dragoon honors, I believe.
Yep, we have 2.
Yeah, just to reiterate, like with 23 or 24 magic on Marcy, you would normally just go through your Ice Blast plus 2s. Right now, Superhandi is on his regular Ice Blast with no plus or minus. And he might end up using most of those and go on to the String Phone.
Yeah, I was not counting, but that was 7 plus Ice Blasts. It's, if you were going for a PB and that happened, you're gonna... That's a dead PB.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. Which makes me consider about getting the magic seal, because even if you get, the time loss getting it, if you do get a unfortunate Marcy, that magic seal put in some work. And if she is good, then it still puts in work.
It used to be very good when we still cast a lot more elements with Marcy, but especially since we're going to kick Marcy out of the party eventually, we're not going to be using magic anymore after a certain point, so then it just doesn't have as much value. Just a backup strat for not losing as much time here. At that point, you're spending time to get a backup strat in case you to lose less time. Just doesn't make a whole lot of sense,
Yeah, I think the only fight that we use Marcy for damage is the Tyranno fight. That's it. So yeah, not really worth it in the run, but it's an idea.
Yeah, and
W finishing off Salt and Pepper.
This is where we need to start paying attention to those strength rolls from Superhandi, because we had a good start. Superhandi, I think, still slightly above average, but if Handy wants a good finish, we're going to need to continue to get some strength rolls. Want high strength leading into this section of the game. Now that we have Master Immune, Lynx is going to be hitting like a truck. Master Immune head gets automatic crits against roughly half the enemy types in the game. So you'll be seeing high damage hits out of the Master Immune from Lynx, and the way that strength scaling works is that whenever we get those guaranteed crits, every point of strength just gets amplified, especially since it's a non-linear scaling. Each point is more valuable than the last.
Yeah, so NDW got the standard drops from Salt and Pepper, just 2 Denadorites, which is nice. Still forge a stone sword and a stone mail or stone vest later on if he needs to. But for Superhandi, we're about to replace Riddell with Fargo. And Fargo is a nice party member because he's decently strong, he's pretty beefy, a lot of HP. I think at this point we hope to have at least 30 strength on Fargo.
Yeah.
30, so
High strength Fargo with a stone sword can actually contribute a pretty good amount of damage in some of the later points and actually save you a lot of time. Because you'll be bouncing between Lynx and Fargo just using physical attacks. And if he's got high strength, he can be doing like 150 plus with his fierce attacks. Like it's nothing to scoff at.
Yeah, it could mean the difference between an enemy getting a turn and using up 10 to 15 seconds to attack, or just finishing it off before it can even go. It's a nice little plus. But yeah, Superhandi is on his way to start the Dragon quest, starting with the Earth Dragon. I guess this would be a good time to talk about mini stars. Do you wouldn't mind, Railcoon?
Yeah, so earlier in the run we talked about this, but so the main way of leveling up is by killing bosses and gaining a star. But every time you level up, your stats for your next star are determined in advance. And that means that you can't really level up in the traditional RPG way by killing like minor encounters. So what the game does to compensate for that is after a set number of fights, non-boss encounters, you gain a mini star, where you gain some amount of HP and other stats, slightly randomized, but it's based on what your next level is going to be. And with the routing, we can kind of predict when these mini stars are going to happen, and one of them is going to happen in this section. So if Lynx and Fargo have a level queued up where they've got 1 or 2 strength that's going to happen, there's a good chance for them getting a strength up. If they've got 2 coming, you will get a +1 on the mini star. But if they got a +1 strength, then there's a reasonable chance to get another bonus strength out of the mini star. And in this section, we're going to have to fight a few enemies to advance. This is another fun instance of GameFAQs getting things wrong. You have to go down here, show them how to use the sand boils. They'll tell you to come back later. Every FAQ I found told you just go do stuff, come back like an hour later. Turns out the trigger is actually just to leave and walk back in. So we got a couple mini stars coming up, and we really want to hope to see some bonus strength out of these mini stars. We want to pump up Lynx's strength as much as possible.
Yeah, Superhandi, he's in a pretty good position. I think he's still at 35 strength. The other two would really benefit from getting the mini stars, because it's almost guaranteed that you're going to get if you get a strength on the mini star, it's almost guaranteed that you'll get a strength on the big star fight, the boss fights with the dragons. But there's also a chance you could get a +2 on the dragons. I mean, after a mini star encounter.
Yep.
I've had that happen a few times, and it's really nice. But yeah, pumping up Lynx's strength and eventually Surge's strength is going to pay off greatly towards the end of the run. So see what everyone gets and hope for the best. Also, the 2 encounters that they're going to have to fight in this cavern can end up wasting a lot of time. The rock roaches, they have an attack, I think it's called spin-off, where it's a yellow element and it's very slow. You just hope to not see that.
And these are also non-boss encounters, so they have a chance of going first and using it. The other thing is a couple different enemy formations here. You can have 2 rock roaches, you can have a rock roach plus another type of enemy, and that is the formation you want to see. Because the rock roaches do not get crit by the master immune, but the other enemy type that can show up does. So whenever you see those and you hit them with the master immune, you can get those crits and just chew through these fights really fast whenever you get the opportunity. So the most common is to see 2 rock roaches or even more. That's 3 rock roaches. It's not great. I'm looking at the wrong screen again. There we go. 3 rock roaches. That's not great. So Handy is going to run away from that and try his luck on another formation. Because the formations aren't set in stone. We'll see this a couple times later on, where we need to fight a forced encounter, we get a bad formation, we run away and try again. So hopefully we get a better one here. We do want to see the other enemy type, and we do not want low AP rolls. That's the enemy type we want to see, but there's the immediate spin-off.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, and the rock roaches aren't dangerous. You're not in any danger of wiping. They just take a long time when this happens. So it's a bit unfortunate. But yeah, with the Master Mune, you will auto crit the other enemy, which is a yellow belly. And you do have a chance of critting the rock roach, but it's kind of low. It's really nice when it happens, because usually just a single 3, it's down.
Yeah, it's just the normal crit rate against the rock roaches, though. The yellow bellies have that guaranteed crit from the Master Mute. Ooh, I don't remember slime what status effect that gives, but hopefully that's not sprain.
Yeah, they'll have to heal that off after the fight. Or else, yeah, spraying causes your party members to just walk outside of battle, so that they lose the ability to run. So you gotta heal that off pretty quickly. You gotta go fast.
There.
A nice crit.
And we got a strength up from the mini star. Nice.
Wow.
So almost guaranteed that we're gonna get a strength from the green dragon, or not the green dragon, the yellow dragon coming up.
Yep. And also for the Earth Dragon coming up, and for most of the fights going forward here, depending on your strength level for links will determine what kind of strategy you use. And for the Earth Dragon, to do the optimal strategy that we know of, you only need 30 strength. Which sounds low, considering what Superhandi has, but on average, when you enter the Earth Dragon Cavern, you're usually at like 29, 30, 31. So Superhandi is very much above average for strength gains.
So we got another spin-off. The reason why it's bad luck to see those spin-offs is that, once again, normal enemies, non-bosses, have a much higher range of AP that they can roll at the start. Those rock roaches in particular have a chance of being extremely slow. They can roll like 17 AP sometimes.
Yeah.
So having them use the spin-off really early is just unfortunate.
Yeah, I think most of the enemies that we are forced to fight that aren't bosses, they have something like 21 AP total, which means you can, on average, get off a lot of attacks and setups before they even get a chance to go. So getting that immediate start is very unfortunate. But it's not that big of a time loss overall. It's just kind of frustrating to see, especially if you're on a PB pace.
And it's interesting how Polly is one of the few bosses that breaks that convention by having a normal enemy's AP rolls. But it's probably because you will run into the same Polly later on as a random encounter in the game. And they didn't change the stats. They didn't really change anything. It's just the same enemy. So probably to make that less of a difficult random encounter. That's why Polly's AP rolls are so random.
I didn't catch Andy W's Marcy magic. So in the chat, let us know. I missed it. Be able to see Closetowars though.
I can check. Right, yeah. First try, I clicked on the VOD and found him renaming
Slappy.
Marcy to Slappy.
Okay.
That's great. I appreciate the commitment to the bit.
So it looks like 21. That's what the chat's saying, which is not bad. A bit better than what Superhandi got. So Andy W should be able to save maybe like a minute or two. Provided that Dario plays nice and doesn't just immediately knock somebody out at the start.
Yep, 21. Confirmed it.
Nice. The Earth Dragon is kind of a pushover. Just use Eagle Eye and turn green. That's all you kind of need to do, and then just have Lynx go to town.
Yeah, the big problem with the Earth Dragon is that his physical attacks have a wide range of how long they take. This kind of paw swipe is the one you want to see.
Oh no. Closetowar got a soft lock.
What?
Let's see.
He actually got the soft lock? That is so rare.
Yeah.
I knew it was possible, but even when I was like... Even when I was routing this game for like 6+ months, I never actually saw it myself. Like, that's how rare it is.
Yeah, soft locks are they can happen in different spots in this game. But yeah, I've never seen the ship soft lock. Wait, I think the last save was Miguel,
Miguel, yeah.
which is
If Closetowar has a save from another run, like, can continue just for the sake of the show, but that's just... Oof. That's really unfortunate.
yeah.
Like, especially since Closetowar and Andy were having a pretty good race there. But like I was saying, the Earth Dragon, the main difficulty there is some of his attacks are pretty slow. He's got enough health, you're not going to kill him quick, so you want to use the fast attacks. Cryo Sphinx, somebody asking in chat, is not part of the run. Completely optional super boss, but it doesn't give us anything as valuable as like the Master Immune. Don't get me wrong, the accessory it gives is very good, but we don't need it. So, especially since the Cryo Sphinx has way more HP and you can't really glitch out the AI in the same way you do Dario. It's not something you'll see in a speedrun for any percent at least. Oh, Closetowar had before Dario. So it's skipping ahead a bit, but maybe Closetowar can just hang out here. What's your Marcy magic on that file, Closetowar? Because it sounds like he's listening to the stream. Because for the sake of the relay, could have Closetowar just chill there for a bit and wait before starting the Dario fight.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure about the exact timing, but it's about 5 minutes of time difference between Andy W and Closetowar.
23, so pretty much close to average on Marcy. Yeah, he says he's going to go bathroom, go AFK for a little bit. That's really unfortunate, because that's such a close race going on between Andy and Closetowar. And I've never actually personally seen that soft lock. I knew it existed, but it never had it happen to me.
Yeah, continuing on with the dragons, Superhandi has made his way to the Water Dragon Isle, and you hear the sad music going in the background, and you wonder why. Because this place used to have a bunch of fairies, and they all got eaten, so it's sad.
It's kind of sad because you can't prevent the fairies from dying. If you do the save kid side quest, the dwarves attack and kill almost all the fairies. So if you go through on a later playthrough, you're like, I'm not gonna save Kit, I'm gonna save the fairies. You come here, and there's a bunch of monsters, and it's playing the sad music, and all the fairies are gone. So here's another instance of enemy formation RNG. We want to see a single sidestepper. If we see any of the formations that have the two manta rays on the side, instantly run away. It's awful. It's not worth it. Two sidestep is okay, but there's this single sidestepper for Superhandi. That's best luck. Can clear this through.
The Earth Dragon Cavern and eventually Gaia's Navel. This is just a single encounter, so getting bad RNG is not the worst thing, but we like to see just a single sidestepper.
Yeah. The worst formation is you can see the sidestepper plus Lagoonets.
Yeah.
And they're strong, as we saw earlier from Sprig, and if they get low AP rolls, they can blow you up. So you see those Lagoonets and you run away instantly.
Yeah, they're not only powerful, but they're very slow. Their attacks pretty slow, so you don't want to see that. So it is worth it just to run away and hope for a better encounter. But at some point, if you just get consistently unlucky, you might as well just fight.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have 2 fights going on. The Water Dragon and Dario for Andy W.
So Closetowar confirming in chat that his strength is almost the same. Andy's telling him to just go instead of waiting as well. It's good sportsmanship from those two. Like, also, like, soft lock like this and a relay like this, I could completely understand if Closetowar just wanted to stop. You know, I know a lot of people would. But he's like, I can load a save, keep playing. And Andy, he's talking to Andy in chat, and he's like, nah, don't wait, just go. So now, Closetowar still a little bit behind Andy. It seems like his stats are mostly the same as to what he left them, so it's not going to be a big change stat-wise.
The only uncertainty variable was Marcy's magic, but that's fine.
Mm-hmm. And
quite normal.
Blue Dragon here is not a difficult fight. Doesn't do a lot of damage. His animations are really fast. Has very low health. So we're going to look over at Andy doing Dario. Hope that this goes well. I appreciate the Slappy name so much. Andy is usually pretty consistent about naming her Slappy in events when he's not going for PBs. So I think we skipped this part last time where you see that Lynx had very low stamina, Marcy had 1, and he's about to get a turn. So what we do is we actually use turn red on Dario. So he counters with the Numble, and that means that he'll take more damage from the blue elements as well. So it's just another damage multiplier that we can use for this fight. Because Dario has a ton of HP. If it wasn't obvious watching, Superhandi have to grind through all those Ice Blasts. He's just got so much health. So here comes the Frog Prince and the Stamina Refresh. Cross your fingers, hope this goes well. Stamina Refresh is still pretty inconsistent. We don't know why sometimes it just doesn't work sometimes. There's just something about it that's not always the same.
Oh, Andy W got 27 magic? 2294 is huge.
Yeah, he got the bad stamina refresh, unfortunately. So he went for the 50-50 strat as well. But Dario took out Slappy. But there's a good backup here. You just revive her.
Yeah, it looks scarier than it is. It's just a 1-1 revive, but
then you use the weak-minded, because Dario will guaranteed counterattack with a Conductor Rod and take out Dario, but it'll also lower his magic defenses so that Slappy can do more damage with these Ice Blasts. I think Dario doing damage. Dario is what I said. He'll take out Lynx with the Conductor Rod. And we see Closetowar doing his own Dario fight now. Ooh, Andy going for the String Phone. Slightly shorter animation, and I guess because the Dario's pretty low health, is just going for it.
Yeah, so Superhandi, after defeating the Water Dragon, is heading to the Hydra Marsh. Start the Guy's Naval quest for the Green Dragon. It's a bit interesting because normally if you choose to save Kid, it would take you to the Hydra Marsh. We're about to face some enemies that normally, if you would do that, we would see if we were still Surge. And these enemies are kind of tough at that part of the game, but because we show up when we do, they become quite the pushovers.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I love the Bibas. Great enemy design. I mean NPC design, because they're not that evil.
Their dialogue is great too, Biba. And Andy wound up taking out Dario pretty fast. I think if Dario hadn't killed Marcy, and Marcy still had all the buffs rolling on her, that might have been a single element kill on Dario with that high magic. But you see Closetowar is going through Dario now. Let's see how this stamina refresh goes. We've had 2 bad ones. Even though having a low magic stat's going to hurt here. Well, not low, but about average magic stat. Closetowar can recover this a little bit easier if he gets the full stamina refresh. So you're just gonna wait a second. And that's the full refresh for Closetowar, so
Nice.
that's the easy, safe finish. Don't have to worry about that at all.
So after defeating the Biba, they give us the Biba flute, and that's in a chest that we just opened. But what you might not know is that you can skip the text that comes after opening the chest. Normally, Fargo or whoever's in your party will say, "Hey, why don't we try using the Biba flute right here?" But if you open the chest just so and have good movement, you can avoid that text. It saves like 2 seconds. So nice that Superhandi got that. Every little bit helps.
I do appreciate that the save that Closetowar loaded has Marcy named Slap You instead of Slappy.
Slapoo. Closetowar was prepared. That's great.
And you see how ridiculously fast this mini boss gets taken down. Normally, when you come here for the the Marsh side quest to save Kid, this leads down to where Razlie is. But since we didn't do the save side quest, if you were to drop down into that cracked floor, the boss would be gone and there would be an empty cage. So sadly, Razlie has been eaten. And Razlie is probably one of my favorite characters in this game, and that makes me sad.
Razlie's great. Very strong green element magic user.
And
Also, her attacks are hilarious.
She's very unique too, in that her 3 attack is AoE and hits every enemy on the field. So despite not having the best strength scaling, if you get lucky with her strength rolls in a casual playthrough and you put some strength accessories on her, she can actually be a pretty big powerhouse for just like normal encounters. Any formation that has a bunch of enemies, she can just blast them away with her magic wand.
Closetowar finishing off Dario nicely. Also, just to remind everyone, with Dario we get the Master Mune, the upgrade for Surge and Lynx, but also the Dreamer's Scarf is just as important. So we get one from Miguel, I think, and we get a second one from Dario. So we're going to make great use of that going forward. Yeah.
Yeah, the difference between having 1 and 2 is a big deal for the speedrun, because it means that later on, now that we have the Master Mune, we can start off fights that we're not too concerned with just Eagle Eye, Strengthen, both on Lynx or Surge. Just have him start wailing away. So we're entering the next big RNG section, the next section where a pretty big time gap can happen, because Superhandi is heading over to the Green Dragon Isle. And in order to progress through here, we have to fight, is it 5 or 6 encounters?
That's 6, I think.
6 encounters, yeah. And there's a bunch of enemies on the field, and we've got some that we fight on purpose because they're generally a little bit faster, but there's a couple formations we want to see and a couple formations we don't want to see. If you ever see the little red cavemen, that is an instant runaway, because they have an awful confusion attack that, if it hits, can wipe your team. It's bad.
Yeah, this is Gaia's Navel is pretty much the most densely packed RNG in the whole run. There's just many parts to it that we just have to deal with, and hopefully everybody gets some good luck, or everybody gets bad luck, so they're all equal. But also, we're going to have another chance at a mini star. It's going to be the second Mantis encounter, wherever it is. So that gives Superhandi and everybody else another chance at getting a strength.
Yeah, and whenever you see these Mantis encounters, we want to see a single Mantis.
Yeah, 2 Mantises are okay. Not that bad. Their stinger attack is pretty slow, but it's no danger. And even though it almost guarantees poison at this point in the game is meaningless, pretty much.
Yeah. You did unfortunately see a poly in that fight, and the polys are just a big health sponge, so that's not worth trying to grind through it. Superhandi ran away. Winds up with 2 Mantis. It's not too bad. And this is one of the sections where Fargo's strength is relevant. When you get these 2 Mantis encounters, Lynx can't really solo them generally, but he can usually kill one and put the other one low health if you do some risky strategies. And then Fargo can just walk over and whack the other one and potentially get the kill. It looks like Superhandi's going for a bit of a safer strategy, going for just strengthen, not going to Eagle Eye. Take it a little bit slower.
On Andy W's screen, he's about to fight the first Rock Roach, which again, that's the chance of the mini star. So hopefully he gets his +1 for strength on Lynx. Also, he gets a good encounter too. No spit-offs.
We do see the yellow belly, but the instant slime.
Oof. That's another turn 0. AP 0.
The Earth Dragon Isle is not happy today.
I always find it pretty frustrating whenever I get there. Always hope for the best, but end up getting not so great luck. Oh, a single Mantis for Superhandi. That's great. Yeah, for running the game, we put ourselves in a mode called Dynamic View. And we kind of do that at the start, but Dynamic View, which I think Railkun can explain it better, makes it so that we're able to cast elements a lot easier than normal because of how it's oriented, but also makes it difficult to tell how many enemies we have to fight in case we get random encounters or these required encounters.
Yeah.
Determining if there's 1 Mantis or 3 or whatever is kind of tough with Dynamic View.
The standard camera is more zoomed out, but it's random on what camera angle you get. And one of the unfortunate things is depending on the camera angle, pressing left or right will go in different directions on the field. So if you start with Lynx in front and you hit left on some camera views, when you're targeting, that'll go to an enemy. Or if you are trying to cast an Eagle Eye, you'll hit left and it'll go to Marcy instead. So the big benefit of Dynamic View is that you select Eagle Eye and you hit right and it will always go to the same target. It's just more consistent for menuing.
Yeah, it's a little hidden tech for runners, but it ends up making a significant difference as you start learning the game. But I saw Superhandi did not get the mini star strength for Lynx. I did miss Andy W.
Andy did.
Got it.
Yeah, Andy got the bonus mini star strength for Lynx.
He did? Nice.
And Closetowar will be hitting that mini star soon as well. Actually, will he still get it given that he loaded his save?
You should. If that's like a practice file for the route, you
True.
should have no trouble. But
Yeah.
who knows?
So we're coming up on a very minor RNG section at the end of this Guy's Naval portion for Superhandi. Because at the end of this section of fighting enemies, the goal is you want to fight Toronto on Poly. And one of the main reasons we have Fargo with us is because Fargo can also steal. It's great that he's blue element as well, but we didn't really explain how stealing worked earlier in the game. So stealing goes off of your accuracy, and when you use an attack, it temporarily increases your accuracy. But if you get attacked, it drops you back down to your base accuracy value. So in order to guarantee a steal, you need to attack the enemy a couple times, increase your accuracy on your hits, and then cast the steal element. So when we get to that point, if we're trying to set up and Fargo attacks, and then either Polly or the Tyranno attacks Fargo, we're going to have to delay that steal or run away and try again, because there's a chance the steal will miss. And we absolutely do not want to miss out on that steal, because that gives us a power seal, which is +5 attack when equipped. It's a fantastic accessory.
And just to point out, like, at the start of the Tyranno fight, Fargo will do a 1-2 to build up to be able to pillage. That's a steal move. And he can still miss, even if the Tyranno doesn't attack. So it's not guaranteed to steal unless he were to, build it up some more.
Yeah.
That's risky. Also, he could steal something that isn't the power seal, and that's always frustrating when that happens.
Yeah, if he gets the rare steal, you have to run away and try again.
Yeah, he can be... Okay, so Closetowar got a +1 strength for links as well. That's good. Yeah, the Tyranno is it can be very frustrating, because you can be stuck there for several minutes. You really can't move on without the power seal.
The power seal is just such a huge boost in damage. Like I was talking about, attack on an accessory winds up being slightly more valuable than strength. It's very close. But +5 attack is basically +5 strength, and it's just huge boost in damage based on everything that we've been talking about. One of the other benefits is that we're starting to get enough attack boosting items that we don't have enough to equip them all to the same person. So Fargo will start getting some of the leftovers. So if Fargo still has high strength, that'll start being added onto as well by the accessories. So here comes the Tyranno fight.
He looks so cute. So pudgy. Like a big dog.
You don't want to pet that dog.
I don't know, he brings a friend. Brings a bird friend. Alright, good luck, Fargo. You got something.
I didn't see, but
About to see it, hold on.
based on the fact that he didn't run away, I'm assuming that's the power seal.
Yeah, so nice. Very nice. First try steal.
You should expect to get the first try steal most of the time, but as it often happens when you get the bad luck, it will be full on troll and give it to you multiple times in a row, because that's just how the game likes to do it. It's possible for that Frog Prince here to not kill if you've got very low magic, but I don't think Handy's magic is low enough for that. Yeah, there we go.
Sometimes this Pterodact likes to lap early, which will put a red on the field. For those who don't know, in order to use a summon element like Frog Prince, the whole field needs to be blue. So there's a backup for it if it were to happen, but luckily it didn't. So got very lucky.
And now that we have defeated Tyranno, we are able to go fight the Green Dragon. And this is an interesting fight, because it's going to be the first time we use this Dragon Sigil. The only time in good ending. If you were playing bad ending, you'd use it again near the end. And it's a very confusing item that a lot of people don't fully understand how it works. So what it does is when you're hit by a elemental attack, you are affected by a number of effects. The first one is that you will take on the innate color as if you had a turn element cast on you of the element that was just cast on you. So Green Dragon hits you with a green element, you are affected as if you had a turn green cast on you. But a secondary, less obvious effect that isn't explained very well is that it looks at how powerful of an element it was and gives you a strength bonus based on that. So high tier elements will give you a higher strength bonus, and a low tier element will give you a very negligible strength bonus. And one of the things the Green Dragon does is if the field is green, he'll use Carnivore, which is a pretty high tier green element. And it starts with 2 green elements on the field. So if we just Eagle Eye Lynx, it's now a full green field, he uses Carnivore, gives Lynx the strength bonus, we give Strengthen on top of that, and then use Fargo to turn him yellow. Now we have Lynx very high powered against one of the scarier dragons we have to fight, and he's going to auto crit for lots of damage. But the Green Dragon has very low AP, so you're pretty much never going to skip this. He's a very fast enemy, and you got to hope for not getting a blindness.
Yeah, even with average strength, Lynx will be pushing out close to 1,000 damage, if not over 1,000, on the Green Dragon, which is pretty significant in short work of them.
Yeah, so that's the only time we really use the Pendragon Sigil, and why we said earlier in the run that's very important you get at least one. Interestingly enough, due to another bit of an error in the code, there's sigils A, B, and C, and they were intended to be a limitation on what elements they worked on, so that like the lower tier sigil would only work on lower tier elements, but they all work on every element. So it doesn't matter if you wind up getting a Pendragon Sigil A, B, or C, it'll all work to do this. If you do the bad ending run, which pretty much nobody in the English RTA or English RTA community does, the final boss, you freeze the AI after letting it hit you with some Pendragon Sigils equipped and just grind through the HP with that strength bonus. That's the only other real application of it in the speedrun, but the international community is mostly taken to the good ending category because given our timing, it doesn't lose much time. It's a more satisfying end. And it's something like a minute and a half extra time onto the run. It's not much at all.
Yeah, so it looks like Andy W got a very good sidestep encounter. So that's nice. Don't want to get trolled by just encounter luck. Superhandi, he got a +1 to strength on the Green Dragon, so he's at 38. And if he gets one more strength, he'll be able to do an optimal strategy for the Sky Dragon.
Oh boy.
Nice. Yeah.
Don't get to see that one very often, but it looks nice.
No. Yeah. Very rare to get 39 or more strength by the Sky Dragon.
So we were talking about other stuff when we saw the Water Dragon before, and just look at how fast the Water Dragon attacks. If you get good luck, Water Dragon also doesn't have a whole lot of health. So optimal fight, you just wind up beating him up. He comes up and he bites you a few times. You beat him a little more and it's over. But even with a few misses, that's still very fast for Andy W. Water Dragon is never really a threat in the run, even if you've got low stats.
Yeah, and Chad made a good reminder that Superhandi did not get the Dragoon Gauntlet drop way back in Fort Dragonia. So although his strength is high at 38, it's effectively reduced without the Dragoon Gauntlet.
Mm-hmm.
He's still able to be, competitive and not lose too much time, but it's worth noting.
And the Power Glove doesn't really help with offsetting that, because normally if you're missing the Dragoon Gauntlet, you just put an extra Dragoon's Honor onto Lynx, which is also +1. So it's still just missing the same amount. The Power Glove is just sort of an optional thing you'd throw into Fargo usually, because we're past the point where magic damage from Marcy matters, so we're not going to be using that to buff her magic at all.
Alright, so Superhandi made his way to Mount Pyre. There's going to be some enemies in this area, some dogs. I really don't like them, but there's this one dog that's just going to be staring at a wall, hopefully. He's my favorite enemy in the game. So let's see if I get lucky enough to see. Is he there?
It's also pretty scary because we're running through the lava. We never did the side quest to freeze the lava. So we're taking damage almost every frame that we're in the lava here. When Superhandi is going to menu here, you'll see that everybody's got 1 HP. And so, especially given what we were talking about before, how minor enemy encounters can roll 0 AP, it can be pretty dangerous by the time you get through to have everybody at low HP and then get into encounter.
Yeah, but these dogs are some real trolls. Ugh. Especially there's this one dog later on that is incredibly fast, that guards an entrance that we have to get to. That won't be till later.
And I think one of the agreed saves was here before the second Red Dragon fight.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, compared to the first Fire Dragon fight, the second one is not so bad. It's not as risky, but you know, things can happen, and it's a nice point between this one and the next save point. So might as well.
And it's an interesting fake out. It's another 2-stage boss, and you're fighting the Red Dragon, and he's kind of implying there's more than what's going on here. And you see the giant salamander in the background, so you're like, okay, we're gonna have to fight the salamander. And he starts off, if you fight him normally, he's not hitting much harder than he was before. So you're not really sure what's coming, and then we won't spoil the fun if you haven't seen this transition before.
I like this fight because there's a phase 1, phase 1.5, and a phase 2.
Yeah.
I like the 0.5.
It's also interesting that in the first phase he's not considered a dragon, so you don't get the auto crit. It's an interesting little detail they added on here.
So the Closetowar got a bad encounter, so he's gonna run away, look for a better one. Some Lagunates, along with the sidestepper.
Link's wound up getting burned by that fire breath. Not going to be a huge deal, most likely. Could lead to some bad luck later on, but should be fine for Superhandi. And it's time for the Red Dragon to show us his true power level.
It's going to show us what it means to go further beyond.
I love the comical way that his legs grow first, just like boom, boom.
Just explodes with power.
So, the main reason why it's not too big of a deal is that the first attack that the Red Dragon's going to do here, this Fire Breath, doesn't do a ton of damage. You can survive it as long as you're not super low health. But he does follow that up with physical attacks, and with that burn, if he had decided to attack Lynx here, as we see Superhandi is guarding for safety. If he decides to attack Lynx and we hadn't been guarding, hits him a couple times with strong attacks with the burn, you could lose Lynx there. But that's a very specific situation, so you just guarded for safety, attacked in, and that's the Red Dragon.
Very good fight. But I think the Red Dragon has one of the longest death animations.
Yeah.
It's pretty slow.
I believe we're getting close to making a friend, aren't we? Let me refresh the notes.
After this is the Sky Dragon, and then some plot.
Mm-hmm. After this, the Sky Dragon will meet my favorite character in this game.
Alright, so Superhandi's at 39 strength.
So we're checking who the dragon's friend is who's stuck in the ground. That's the salamander. When you fight all the dragons, you get a summon from them. And he just gives you the summon salamander that's behind him.
So Closetowar, I think, used Eagle Eye on the Water Dragon. The Water Dragon, you don't normally use it because you hope Lynx won't miss. but it can easily happen.
Hmm.
Like a 2-2-3, and you can miss everything. So, nice. It was a good strategy. Biba Baba of the Bibas.
The Bibas are great. I love the Bibas. That fight is actually scarier than it looks like too.
Yeah, so if if he misses, the Biba will summon a friend. And if you don't take out that Biba that summoned the friend, they'll summon more friends. So the
And
fight can kind of drag on.
And the friend can summon with very low AP to the point where you can't kill it fast enough. So you can wind up with like 4 or 5 Bibas on the screen, and this is terrible, wasting time.
Yeah, Closetowar making a good point. In addition to just almost guaranteed hit, the Eagle Eye pushes blue off the field, so makes it so that there's more damage to it.
I was not watching strength gains closely enough. I didn't see if we have the opportunity for the optimal strat here against the Sky Dragon. Interestingly enough, the Sky Dragon doesn't get auto crit by the Master Immune. We can talk about a potential story reason why in a little bit. But you did see that got 1 crit. Anyway. Oh no, that's me being stupid. He did 2-3.
It looks like he's either doing the 37 strength or 38 strength strategy.
Yeah. I wasn't looking, and I thought that was a 3-3, but it was a 2-3.
We'll do a glide hook right here. Yeah. Alright, good fight.
Lynx. How's his strength doing after this? You've got a short period where his strength doesn't matter as much until we hit the final dungeon. That's 40 strength though, that's very good.
40, yeah. So let's see. Yeah, so he has a chance for 1 more strength up before Dark Surge.
Yeah. And we've also got a series of fights where you don't need very high strength leading up until Police.
Yep.
But he already has enough to do the fast strat on Police, so looking pretty good for Superhandi in terms of late game.
So for Andy W, he's fighting his first Mantis encounter. It looks like it's just a single one. That's great. But the second one will be his mini-star chance. And Superhandi did not get the strength. And so on the Tyranno fight afterward, he also did not get the strength because that's kind of they're tied in together.
Yep.
So get a chance for Andy W and eventually Closetowar to catch up on strength to make the ending a lot more consistent.
But yeah, this section that Superhandi is reaching is a point where you could try to recover some strength if you're behind. These next several fights don't need very high strength to get through. If you're like a little bit behind the curve but not at high strength, you can kind of get lucky through here and still make the high strength thresholds for the end of the game.
Yep.
This is another fight we're coming up on that you're intended to do a little bit earlier. So it's kind of a pushover at this point now that we've got 40 strength, got the Master Immune. Not going to auto crit, but it's not going to matter.
I love Oroha. Doesn't take crap from anyone.
She's a fun character, but she comes into the game pretty late and doesn't really offer anything unique to us in the speedrun, so...
She's so dodgy. Even with the Eagle Eye, it's only going to be 88% chance to hit the 3. But it didn't matter. So Andy W did get the strength. I think he's at 31. So.
I missed it, so I can check after he's done with this one. So now now that we're done fighting Orha, the fact that Lynx is an officer, Marcy and Fargo kind of tell the soldiers to leave and that Lynx will take care of it. Yeah, 31 for Andy.
Yeah, Andy Duffy's getting some good encounter luck. Just single mantises per encounter.
And it's interesting that you might think this fight is not worth it, given you have to do the large climbing animation here. And then you have to fight a guaranteed poly enemy here. It just turns out that based on where the other available enemies are, this just works out better to climb up here, get this item. We actually don't care about the item. It's one of the few items we pick up that we don't intend to use at all.
Yep.
But
it's just the trigger to get the pterodact to show up.
Yeah.
Looks like they got a single one in the encounter. Sometimes they come in pairs, and you hope not to see that. Alright, it went down smoothly. So after Orla, we're going to go visit the shrine. Go talk to Diria again. He's going to kind of set us on our path.
Isn't it Stina this time?
No,
Stina's in the other world. Right.
Yeah. We'll eventually just see Stina.
Stina's in the background here.
Never trusted Stina. Ever. I always thought she was the sky dragon in disguise. Still do.
She doesn't get removed from your party later, though.
I know. But she can teleport. She's so suspicious.
What if she's a clone? Clones exist in universe. Won't go too much into details for that. That's spoiler heavy.
Yeah.
But we need the dragon tier, and if you go to the other world here before you come here, if you go to Homeworld first and try to talk to get the dragon tier, they'll tell you that they don't trust you. They need some way to know that they can trust you. So you come back to another world and you talk to Diria, and she gives you a seal to show that you have the trust of the sage, and that gets you in to talk to Stina so that she can help you get the dragon tier so you can access Fort Dragonia, and we're finally gonna get Surge his body back.
I like that Chrono Cross doesn't really hold your hand and tell you exactly where to go and what to do. It just kind of implies something like, oh, you need to talk to the sage? Well, maybe you should go visit the other sage in the other world. Like, that's just implied. So it helps promote exploration, which there's so much to this game that the speedrun doesn't even cover, doesn't even talk about. So, very great game. If anyone's ever interested in playing it, please do. It's a lot of fun.
And now we're going to do part of getting my favorite character, but it's going to lead to a either fun or not fun moment, depending on who you ask. The fish dance. This is one of the harder tricks. Not quite as difficult as the one frame guard skip at the manor, but way more punishing if you fail it.
Yeah, there are stages of failure. So there's one stage of failure where it's just a moderate time loss. The other one is several minutes of time loss.
So if you look at these fish as they're swimming around, they have their patterns they swim on, but if they see you, they'll also kind of speed up and swim at you a little bit faster. And we're trying to get them into a rotation where they are all away from the chest, so we can open the chest without getting into a fight. But the problem is, if you do get into a fight, you get locked in place, and the enemy you're fighting stops, but the other ones don't stop. So you can get locked into a position where you do a fight, and the moment you leave, another enemy attacks you. And if you ever wind up with two enemies on top of you, you can no longer run away. You are permanently in battle until you kill them all. And while that's going on, the other fish are likely to stack on top as well. So getting one fight likely means having to do all 4. And it looks like there's going to be at least 2 for your handy. I think there's 2 fish here. And a third one just swam up on top of him. So yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, we mentioned before that you could run away from every enemy in the game and then like either move after a fight or menu. Oh, we got the strength for the mini star. It's nice. But if there are multiple enemies like ganging up on you in a corner, or in this case a bunch of fish swimming in your face, you cannot run away. You run away and then an encounter will trigger immediately. So unfortunately Superhandi is forced to fight these 4.
Yep.
Yeah.
The pufferfish are the easier ones. They generally go down pretty fast, but the school of fish can be just a little bit more annoying sometimes. But if we get a good formation, it's good luck, they'll go down quickly. There's just a lot of time wasted. All these battle animations, you gotta see. The important thing is that when you run away from an enemy, it only deactivates the hitbox of the one you ran away from. So it means that when there's more than one, there's always an active hitbox on top of you. But as you can see, the school of fish have a little bit more health, and you do not crit them, so it just takes a little bit longer to grind through them.
See Andy W with the Tyranno fight. I believe he stole the power seal first try, but now he got interrupted with the flap, so now he's doing a backup to make the field all blue for Frog Prince.
And once again,
it was pretty quick. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say once again, big shots. People who came later on came up with all these backup strats. A lot of these didn't exist when I was writing the game, and they figured out good, safe ways to recover from a lot of situations. A lot of them are in chat right now watching. So,
yeah, absolutely. Thank you all very much. I mean, without your help, running this game would not be as fun or beginner friendly. So, thank you.
And you can see the difference on damage there from Marcy compared to when Superhandi did it. Oh my goodness. That was a good 400 to 500 more damage out of that Frog Prince. So the whole point of going there with Lynx and company was to get the star fragment, because when we come here at the top, instead of the Sky Dragon being here in the home world, there's just an empty chest, and it lets you put the fragment into the chest, and then a horrifying creature is going to run out at us.
Oh, he's adorable, even though he's a giant. Yeah, one of the strangest little cutscenes in the game, but it's memorable.
I love the sound of him walking at you. It's so good. Starkey is just my absolute favorite character in the game.
I like the NPC down there. He's terrified. Oh, it's back. Chronopolis is such a good game.
It is. So this is Starkey. This is who we were talking about earlier. If you were to do the theoretical no Master Immune route, which is way more beholden to RNG, it is possible. But you'd have to have extremely good luck for it to be faster than the Master Immune. You'd want to recruit Starkey sooner, because Starkey has access to a very powerful gun as soon as you recruit him, and then you can give that to Norris, who has better stats to use that gun. But we are fighting Starkey a little bit later than intended, so you can see, even though he's got a lot of HP, he's not doing much damage. They kind of expect you to recruit Starkey much sooner, which is why there's some dialogue we missed out earlier when Harley left the party. And my favorite thing about Starkey is if you've never seen this before and you've got a casual file with Starkey on it, put them in your party and let them all do their idle animation. Starkey flips upside down and starts balancing on top of his space helmet, just like wobbling around, and it's adorable.
So cute. Yeah, so normally Starkey would be a mini star fight, but because Superhandi fought the fish, he got his mini star up there.
Mm-hmm.
Good for him, because he got a +1 to strength, so that means the next fight, which is Dark Surge, the next boss, be almost guaranteed to get a +1 there.
Starkey's also fun because one of his high level techs, he summons a giant robot from the sky, Voltron style, and just shoots a laser at your enemies.
Ooh, Closetowar got the, I think, AP0 Jurassic beat. It's awful.
Did successfully manage to run away, though. That can be terrifying if you get the AP0 Jurassic beat.
NDW finishes off the green dragon.
So now we're going to go back to the homeworld, Guldove here. Show them the dragon seal, which is the seal from the sage. They'll go, how did you get that?
And somehow Stina knows. She is a sage, so yes, she could have some mystical knowledge, but it's suspicious, I tell you.
And you notice that Diria isn't here in this world. It's just Stina.
Yes, Stina was waiting with a knife in hand.
And it's interesting because she joins your party here and it's kind of implied she's temporarily joining your party, and then she just sticks around.
We don't put her in our party, but eventually when we reach Fort Dragonia, she's just going to appear. Just out of nowhere.
Yes, Stina sus. Vote Stina. Insert more Among Us memes here.
So Closetowar starting his Tyranno fight. See if he gets the power seal. First try.
Got the steel. Looks like the power seal. Yep, didn't run away. And I have to briefly sidetrack here, just because I always have to bring this up. At the end of this Fort Dragonia, there's a lovely cutscene where Surge is getting his body back, and you get some Surge booty. And whenever I stream this game, it winds up as my thumbnail on the Twitch page for, like, the directory. For the rest of the run, it never updates. It's just Surge booty for the rest of the run, and I don't know why. So if the thumbnail for RPG Limit Breaks winds up being a little bit of Surge booty, it's probably my fault. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that cutscene is perfect for a restroom break for the runners. I know I take it every time, though I hardly ever see that cutscene.
And it's this was a moment that I was like worried and casual, because we come in and we got the Fort Dragonia, and I'm like, oh god, are we gonna have to go through all of those puzzles again? And then Stina shows up and just put the dragon tier there, and the whole tower unlocks, and you're like, thank goodness. But
Actually, I was actually looking forward to it because, like, oh, what new puzzles will there be? No, the developers were kind.
If at the start of the game you'd gone into the side area of Fossil Valley and you'd gotten the egg, you can get one of the other best characters in this game by going down the elevator after the Dark Surge fight. You can get Draggy, who is fantastic, fastest character in the game, best stamina refresh, adorable as heck, just not very powerful. But I had many a playthrough where it was my party was rotating between Starkey, Razzie, and Draggy just because of the adorableness. So this is supposed to be kind of a big confrontation. We're fighting Lynx. He's still using her body. You're expecting a pretty tough fight here. Sorry to say, it's not going to be very tough. He just feels like he doesn't have enough HP for the point in the game that we're at. And his attacks don't do a lot. He can use some elements, but none of his elements are very strong.
Yeah, if you enter the Dark Surge fight with not a lot of strength, like let's say 32, I'm not throwing that number out at random, it happened to me, there's a chance you won't do enough damage to Dark Surge, and he'll use Volcano, which is like a strong version of Inferno, just destroy your whole party. But none of these runners should have that problem.
But especially since casual, you'll have gotten way more mini stars. You'll have some pretty good equipment.
Oh yeah.
You'll be pumping out a lot of damage. That's usually not going to happen in casual either, just because you'll be very strong.
And plus we have 2 blue element users in the party, so Volcano does extra damage to them. But side note, there he goes.
So this elevator gives you a choice on going up or going down. I don't even think you can go down in another world. I think it only lets you try to go down here in Homeworld.
Yeah, Superhandi at 42 strength. Surge is becoming a monster. I mean, sorry, Lynx.
I mean, we talked about that earlier. Harley was discussing, are you still Surge or are you Lynx? What's the difference? Where does that change? I think we can still call him Surge.
Yeah. Just debating philosophy. It's nothing to worry about.
I think the highest strength threshold we want to hit is 5 more strength. If you can get to 47, then you get the best strat on Gravitor.
Yeah, the goal, for those who are interested in the speed run, the goal is just to reach 44 for the Dragon God, the second to last boss in the game. And more often than not, you will reach that. Sometimes you'll have less, and then you have to account for that. But optimally, as Ryokun mentioned, 47 is what you shoot for. You need 46 for the Dragon God itself to do the optimal strat for that. But 47 can speed up a couple of fights before the Dragon God if you have it.
Yeah, and there's a whole separate document dedicated to fighting the Dragon God with low strength if you don't make that threshold. But like we were talking about before, there's some bad luck protection. Your chances of getting strength, if you're very low on strength, at this point in the game start going up pretty high. The game does sort of want you to be at about a consistent level when you're hitting the end of your first playthrough. So while sometimes you'll be way above, the chances of you being way below are very, very uncommon. So this is where we get a little bit more of a story dump, and about how Lavos is responsible for creating the reptites when it landed. Well, not creating the reptites, but for creating humans. Because a small splinter of Lavos came off and created the frozen flame. And the previously reptile world was created humans, ape-like creatures that walked around on their legs. And this is getting really deep into a lot of the stuff that's hard to access in the lore here. Chronopolis was powered by the frozen flame, which is that fragment of Lavos that broke off, and has a lot to do with, Chronopolis traveling back in time and all the trouble that's been caused. But the important part here is that the frozen flame is a fragment of Lavos, which ties into the final boss that we're going to have to deal with later on.
Yeah, as far as the story goes, for those who are more familiar with Chrono Trigger, all you have to know is that in an alternate timeline, when Lavos was defeated, Balthazar, instead of being sent forward in the future to a desolate future, set to a prosperous one with future technology. So from there, he kind of created this institute to study the frozen flame and time, called the Chronopolis. Used Robo, called him the Prometheus Circuit, to assist. And then his whole goal is to save Princess Shala. That's pretty much what Chrono Cross is all about. And how all the events are pretty much orchestrated by Balthazar. So,
Yeah, it's just he.
Of course, you could ignore all that and just enjoy the game, but
yeah. And he accidentally created yet another alternate timeline when Chronopolis got sent back in time to before when Lavos landed. So it's a alternate timeline from the end of Chrono Trigger that created yet another alternate timeline.
Yep.
So even though this is like kind of an indirect continuation of Chrono Trigger, you could say that none of this is actually canon for Chrono Trigger since it's an alternate timeline. Because part of the Chrono Cross timeline is that as a result of Chronopolis going back in time, it undid Lavos being defeated. Which is kind of a weird side effect because this timeline only exists because Lavos was defeated. Yeah. It gets very confusing very fast.
It's very confusing. But you don't have to worry about that to enjoy the game. So we got Surge back, and there goes Stina, just appearing out of nowhere. So we're coming up on disc 2, which is amazing that most of the game is on disc 1. There's so much packed into one disc. It's pretty incredible.
I got to the point where, like, finally we were switching to disc 2, and I was like, wait a minute. How long is this game? Because disc 1 was forever. I forgot there was a second disc at that point, like, first time I was playing casually. Mm-hmm. And then you switch discs, and you're like, is this going to be as long as the first disc? Because at this point, casually, you're very far into the game.
Yeah, you time-wise. Exploring, fought extra bosses and mini-bosses, got most of your characters recruited. You've done a lot. And then there's disc 2. You're like, oh, okay.
And I think it's because overall, they went pretty light on pre-rendered cutscenes in the first disc. There's a couple, but not many. And that gets turned up a bit in disc 2, we'll put it that way. Including my favorite pre-rendered cutscene with the wiggly blue dragon.
Oh, Andy W got a +2 strength. That'll help him out going forward, because he was stuck at 32 strength, which is pretty abysmal, to be honest.
Yeah, Closetowar finishing off the red dragon, so we'll get to see how he's doing on strength as well.
Getting that slow death animation. The red dragon.
One of the things that we kind of passed over is that when he defeated Dark Surge, he said, come to the Sea of Eden. So now that we have our body back, we can go back to the Sea of Eden, except we're in the other world. And instead of the Dead Sea being there, there's something else. What was that? Was that 34?
Yep. So is that 35?
35, okay.
Yeah, so a peek behind the curtain, the speedrunning curtain. When you get to this point, after that text pops up, you can open up your disk tray and just insert disk 2 before it's finished loading, and it says, please insert disk 2. So you could save time just putting in your disk early, and nothing happens, apparently. It's not dangerous to do.
Yeah, and it's very important that you do this in the correct order. So there's 3 islands. You talk to all 3 and it spawns a boss. But the order that you talk to the items on the island spawns different bosses with different rewards. And we do this one in particular because not only is it a better fight, but the reward is fantastic. By doing this fight, I think it's Vita Unus we take.
Yep, Vita Unus.
You get a element called Vigora, which is a strange little element that requires an innate caster to use it. So the blue element has to be cast by a blue character. And what it does is it gives you a status effect where you use AP, but you don't use stamina for a set amount of time. And it really lets us go ham. One of the nice things about it is that it counts the AP usage, not the stamina usage. So you can cast an element and not lose any of your stamina for casting the element, or you can just go to town, just using your 3 attacks, 3 onto enemies, and just with the Master Immune and do tons of damage. So Vigora is really what enables some of the harder fights later in the run to really be fast. So there's, even if we found faster strategies to kill the other alternate bosses here, it would be slower because we wouldn't be getting Vigora.
Yeah, this is an interesting fight to talk about. There's a lot going on that you don't see. And I think Railkun can explain it better than I can, but it involves our stamina, like, pausing to account for damage and other things like that.
So this fight is similar to the Dragon God at the end in that the HP value isn't how much health it has left. It has a set amount of HP, and when you do enough HP, it'll start saying like one of the cores has stopped functioning, and then it'll move on to the next phase. And it's based on how much damage you do. You're not realistically able to reduce this boss to 0 HP, but so your goal is to disable the 2 cores, and then you're in the final phase, and then do enough damage, and then the boss dies. So if you push too hard, if you do too much damage, you're just delaying the core from being disabled and making the fight take longer. So you try to do set amount of damage and then wait, because you want the boss to take a turn, because it can't advance to the next phase before it takes a turn. And the Dragon God is very similar in how you're going to do that. A phase-based fight based on amount of HP, and you're not just... It's not a set total amount of HP, because you can do overkill and it doesn't make the next phase go faster.
You see Closetowar finishing off the Sky Dragon. He entered that fight with burn status on Lynx. That was a result of him with a backup save file. He didn't have ointment on there, but it took care of it nicely, no problems, and eventually that burn condition will wear off after Orla. So, good job.
43
kind of risky to keep that on for the dragon.
43 strength for Superhandi. Close to War mentioning in chat that Marcy's strength is higher than Lynx's on his file.
That's a shame.
That's a bit unfortunate. Still has plenty of time to catch up before the end game. Hopefully can recover some of that strength and have a good Terra Tower. But now that we have Surge back, well, the important thing is that all of our previous party members we had before are willing to join our party again. So not quite doing it yet, but that means we have access to Glenn again. And Vigora needs a blue element caster. But instead of replacing Fargo with Glenn like we used to do, now that the game has been rerouted to reduce basically all of the magic damage from this portion of the game, we're eventually going to swap Marcy with Glenn so that we can keep Fargo around. He's just a bit beefier. His attacks are a little bit more useful if we got to use them as filler in any situation. And he can still use Vigora, which is the important part. But we've got Polis Police. You want to explain this fight?
I'll try. There are 2 strategies, one with 35 strength and the other with 40. So Superhandi will be able to do the 40 strength. But we'll use Eagle Eye. And then Fargo, after Surge attacks, will cast Vigora on Surge. And the Polis Police fight has a spot in the fight where you do enough damage, people break. It'll trigger, like, a bunch of armor will fall off. But by that point, we have done enough damage to just continue with Vigora, be able to pump out a whole bunch of 3s and just take him out, no issue.
Yeah, and sorry, go ahead.
Andy got lucky that the Megaton Punch didn't hit Marcy. It always does for me, and that always knocks her out. But this way, there's no issue with having to heal her up afterward.
But you see there he used Dash and Slash first because it uses 1 AP and it only removes 1 AP from the Vigor effect. But it doesn't drain the stamina, as opposed to using it last, which would use 7 stamina. So then you just spam a bunch of 3s, and yeah, that's a lot of damage. That's why Vigor is broken.
I think we only use it twice in the run, but it's so useful.
The 2 times we use it are extremely useful and help us circumvent a battle that would be much, much more difficult without it. The Polis Police, as you saw from the first attack on Fargo, does a ton of damage, and you really do not want him to stick around, especially after the armor breaks. You don't want to see those attacks.
44 strength.
So for the best strategies, Superhandi needs 3 more strength, and there are a lot of bosses to go. Because there's the fight here at the end of Chronopolis and all of the Tor fights in Terra Tower.
We got a robot friend. So it might not be obvious to the viewers, but the robot has to go against a current, so it kind of looks odd as you're controlling it. And you got to be very careful about moving around the corners, because even just slightly touching the corner will cause it to fall through. You have to do the puzzle again. So
now we're in Chronopolis, in the point where it has been... This is Chronopolis after it was sent back in time, way back in time, and then it, you know, with the power of the Frozen Flame, is returned back to this timeline. So this is a city that was created in the future, went back in time, accidentally found a world where the reptites didn't get killed by Lavos, and they evolved into a super evolved race, and Chronopolis went to war with that reptile race, and then eventually managed to seal them away and jump forward in time again.
Yeah, with the help of fate, all the dragons were defeated, so their race died out, but the dragons themselves were kind of tied with the earth, the land. They couldn't really be destroyed, so instead the fate computer somehow fused them together into one. Oh, they were in one being. They fused them into six dragons.
Yeah, and instead of being like one super dragon, they're all now 6 separate dragons with all having their own like connection to the earth, which is why they're like the earth and the sky and the water, fire. Green is just sort of like plant life, you know?
Yep.
I'm not sure what black dragon is supposed to be.
Gravity, I think.
Gravity? Okay.
Yeah, the black dragon, when we see him, is sleeping on water. I always thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, we get this in-depth backstory as it relates to Luca, who kind of discovered how to do time travel.
Yeah.
See, the shadows of the researchers are kind of derisive about their judgment of her. I think she's kind of foolish, but hey, they make a big mistake and blow themselves like several thousand years backwards in time. So they have no room to judge.
So the whole point here is we have to move through Chronopolis, kind of have some forced lore dumps explaining what all we just explained, and trying to find our way towards the Frozen Flame. And there is a tough thing coming up after we talk to this researcher, where we got to get a key item from a chest that has an enemy guarding it. And that enemy is very difficult to fight, but if you do some particular movements, it's actually faster to run away from it repeatedly. And if you move and you combine walking and running in just the right timings, you can skip one of the times of having to run away from it and only run away from it twice instead of 3 times.
Yeah, it'll become more clear when it's shown. Let's see. So Closetowar is about to engage dancing with some fishes.
Ooh, the fish dance.
Fishes isn't plural.
I didn't see how Andy W's fish dance went. Did you see that?
No, I know he got a +1 on Starkey. I'm not sure if he... I think sometimes he does one or the other first.
It's scary. Oh my god, he's dodging in the back. Oh, how did he get out of that?
Very nice.
How did he get out of that? So, like, he ran all the way in the back of that cave to escape the fish, but sometimes the fish can go back there.
Yep.
Especially if they see you. They will swoop towards you. And they're, like, when they see you, like, where you're standing versus them, so how they will target you and swoop at you, it doesn't seem consistent. But the really, really good runners like Closetowar and Elgranjerry seem to understand it better than I do. I don't know how it works.
Yeah, so we see on Superhandi's screen, he's hugging the bottom wall. He got an encounter, ran away. Then he's going to scoot forward. He can either run or walk. And then as he runs away here, he's going to hold left and then walk. And by mashing X or R1, he's going to hit up on the control stick. And then the chest should open without triggering an encounter again. And then he could just run out of there. So let's see if he does it. Yep, very nice.
It's a particular set of inputs. It looks strange, but once you get used to it, it's pretty consistent. We're going to have to get into a fight with some more of those. There's no way around it. But we don't actually have to kill them. We can just run away because of what we're talking about with the fish. How when you get into a fight, they stop, but the other ones don't. So now by entering this encounter, we've desynced the two enemies, and we can just run away and move through that gap we've created. So now we are approaching Fate, which is the computer core of Chronopolis, which is powered by Frozen Flame, or was powered by the Frozen Flame. Frozen Flame appears to be missing after Surge is gone. And if you look above the door, you see Project Kid. That clearly is not important to the story at all. Nope. I don't know why that would be there.
Just a random name.
And this is the point in the game where we start getting a lot of kind of story dumps explaining things that they've been being mysterious about. It's what I was referring to when we talked to Diria near the start of the game, how she used a lot of terms you mentioned that never get explained. This is where they start explaining them late in the game, kind of tying all those story threads together.
Also, this is one of my favorite themes in the game.
So this is also where we find out who Lynx is as well. Because when your father, Wazuki, brought you here to try and get you some medical attention after the Panther Demon attacked, that's when Lynx, or Fate, told Wazuki to bring the child to them. Surge made contact with the Frozen Flame, and Fate took over Wazuki's body, turned him into a Panther Demon, and then, because Chronopolis is time and nonsense, tried to then kill Surge with it?
Yeah, they want to control. No one else could have the Frozen Flame but Fate. Or so they think.
Because the Frozen Flame is the core of Fate and Chronopolis, but its power is technically locked away. Fate doesn't have full access to the power of the Frozen Flame, so it can't do everything that it's capable of doing. So that's why after Surge was made the key to access the Frozen Flame, Fate wants Surge. So Lynx, who is your corrupted father, is then reverted back into Fate, and we have to fight Fate. And this is one of the few instances where the starting AP value is extremely important. Because as Corporate mentioned earlier in the game, we need to get off a Diminish as soon as possible. Or a Magnify as soon as possible. We do not want Fate to use Diminish, and that's the first thing Fate will do is Diminish.
And this is one of those fights where if it doesn't go correctly, you run away and try again. It's not worth continuing on. But luckily, Superhandi got it off. We're about to see an awesome summon coming up.
Yeah, it's a very powerful summon. It's just the animation is very long, so we don't really get to use it. It's also one of the few times where Surge's magic stat matters.
Yeah, I think by this part of the game, you hope Surge has like 24 magic, around there. But the higher it is, the more likely you'll be able to not one shot, but take out Fate with the summon alone. But strength plays a part in that as well. So with handy strength, I think should be able to take care of it.
So we wanted to get all of our buffs out. We've got Genius onto Surge. Now we're going to use Weak-Minded because it'll increase the damage they take, but also we'll add more white onto the field because we need to use White Summon. So we need to full white field this, and Weak-Minded and Turn Whites are very quick animations, so just using those. Now Surge is going to use this summon that we have equipped. Do a little bit of extra damage first, just in case this doesn't do enough damage. And just enjoy this Saints animation. It's very powerful, it does very high damage, and it also heals you for way more than it needs to.
Yeah.
And this is a very difficult fight casually, and we kind of trivialize it with this strategy.
3940. Almost 4,000 damage.
I think the highest I've seen on that was 5,000 or something like that. And again, to point out, with Magnify and Diminish, they have opposite effects, but whichever one you use first is the one that takes effect. So, that was a 150% power on that that spell. So you remove a third of that, and then half that, and that's what it would be if Diminish was active. Just such a huge difference in damage if Fate uses Diminish before you can Magnify.
Yeah, so Superhandi sitting pretty, 45 strength. And it's good to note that the next bit of fights going forward, the tour battles, you're pretty likely to get a strength on that. There are certain enemies, certain bosses where you're more likely to get a strength up over elsewhere. So we could see him top off at 50 or more this run. Let's see. I'd like to see it. Pretty great.
This is where we learn that Harley is not actually human. Turns out that there was a 7th dragon all along, the Dragon of the Dark Moon, who is Harley.
Artificial dragon woman thing. Yeah, just like Lynx is kind of a puppet to fate, Harley is a puppet to the dragons. She has free will, but when it's all said and done, she has to do what they say.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of sad because I always felt like Harley like wanted to help you and not assist the dragons, but
yeah, I mean that's part of why she gets so sad and leaves earlier, is that she does like us, but the flirting aside, she does actually like us and wants to help us, but she can't fight too much against their will. So now that Fate has been defeated, the Fate is the only thing that was keeping them from rejoining together and becoming their previous state. The 6 dragons form, they fly up, and they bring up Terra Tower, which was the sort of stronghold of the dragons before. So their civilization's equivalent to Chronopolis. And throughout all of that, during the story dump, there was a memory file that was being accessed that was being referred to as Prometheus, and Fate deleted that memory file. So very strong implications that was Robo's memory banks that just got cleared. I know a few people dropped some Bible thumps in chat, but if you missed that, Bible thump F in chat for Robo.
And the next cutscene coming up, I love the sound design. Like if you have headphones on, you can hear the surround sound going on, and it's pretty amazing for this time when Chrono Cross was released. It was pushing the limits of what the PlayStation 1 could do.
And now we get this cutscene of all the dragons coming together. It's a little bit creepy, but I love how the blue dragon flies. Look at that. No wings, just wiggles.
Wiggle, wiggle.
Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. It's my favorite thing. One of my favorite things to point out in this game. And I saw Puexel in chat pointing it out as well, because I've pointed it out in the past. Just look at that wiggle. It's
like
so good.
The water dragon is controlling the water in the atmosphere and just swimming through it. It's just that powerful.
Yeah. But the gravity dragon, who is able to float on water while asleep, has wings.
Has wings, yeah. No, Harley.
And you wouldn't really expect the way this final creature winds up looking after they all join back together.
It's kind of off-putting. I just wish it was bigger. Like, at least 2 to 3 times bigger than it was. Dragon God? Come on, it's gotta be huge.
And one of the effects of this is that Kid was on top of Fate's computer, and when Harley released herself and went back to rejoin them, something happened to her. Kid is unconscious in a coma, and, well, there's intended to be a side quest where you go get the Chronopolis and you go into her memory, find out about the orphanage that Luca ran, and, like, kind of wind up saving Kid through time magic. And then Kid wakes up after that, but it's not required, and it doesn't give us anything to finish the end of the game faster, so we're just continuing the theme of abandoning Kid. Except this time, we abandon her off in the Hermit's Hideaway, asleep in bed,
In a coma.
unresponsive.
Yeah. We're responsible protagonists. Alright, so this is a bit of a, say, not very intuitive part of the game, because the game expects you to have Starkey with you to progress. And anyone hasn't been exploring casually, you might not know that. It can be a bit frustrating. Because you don't know the plot triggers ahead of time. But
The only real nudge you get about it is that you need some way to fly up to the tower. And a couple of the NPCs will, kind of lament, we need something advanced to be able to get up there, is kind of your hint. Because Starkey's an alien with advanced technology. But the star fragment that we found before was a fragment of Starkey's spaceship that was destroyed when he landed. But it turns out, on the other world, Starkey's spaceship is intact, but is missing a few things.
Right. So we just put Glenn in the party, and in addition to tracking Surge's strength, we kind of want to pay attention to what Glenn's strength is. He's at 38, which is pretty reasonable, but depending on his output will determine some of the strategies we do against the future boss fights. But normally he's pretty strong.
And this is an interesting boss that stumps a lot of people because he works differently than most enemies. This boss is completely immune to anything that's not red innate damage. And one of the nice things we talked about before is that Glenn and Surge, their dual strike, their X strike equivalent, is red innate. So instead of having to find a red spellcaster or a red physical damage dealer and fully equip them, we can bring Glenn into our party, who is a good source of damage for the rest of the game, equip him, and just X-strike the boss. And most of the time, this will be enough damage. You have to have very low strength across both of them for this not to kill the boss. But even then, you can kind of make up for it with strength thins and other buffs.
Right, and maybe a few people missed it, but Glenn has his Einlanzer, so he is able to eventually do a lot of damage. Contribute with the Master Mune and Fargo's Stone Sword. Einlanzer is very nice. $2,100.
So someone is asking about the good old Is Guile Magus in chat. And the answer to that question is complicated. Because in Radical Dreamers, Maggle is Guile looking for Scala. But when they made Chrono Cross, they took the kind of general story beats from Radical Dreamers and used that to build a more complete story. And when they did that, they removed the entire idea of Maggle being Magus, renamed him to Guile, put him in Termina, and he's looking to try and get into the manor. Kind of as a shout out to Radical Dreamers, because he wants to be in the manor, but is no longer Magus looking for Scala. But then, later on, in the Chrono Trigger DS editions, where they added bonus content, they added more story and lore, implying that Guile is Magus. So, the original intent of the developers was for Guile to not be Magus. And then, I'm assuming because of the way the fans took it, they decided to make it more open-ended later on with the DS editions.
Yeah, it sounds like a tie-in that was out of convenience rather than just originally planned. But you can take it however you like.
Yeah, in the end, you can argue it in either direction, and there have been many forum and internet arguments about it over the years. So, generally, just to do the one you want. This is one of my favorite scenes. Starkey talks about how this is very precise. I need to load this onto the boat carefully. And whoever you have in the other party gives Starkey some sass. Like, don't you just need to put it on the boat? He's like, no, this is very precise. I need to do calculations. I need all the proper tools. And it cuts to a scene of the gyro being in the back of the boat. And whoever you have in Glenn's spot will say, you just put it on the boat. And Starkey kind of gets upset at them. It's like, no.
No, I did a thing. It's impressive, right? But what is impressive is this cutscene right here. I love the fact there's no music. It really builds up the tension and emotion to what's coming forward. Yeah, they could have had some sort of epic, heroic theme playing, but they chose not to. I approve.
Yeah. This would be the point in many other games where the main theme from like the menu or the trailer would be playing here. It's like, similar early in the game when they had Link say Chrono Trigger, be like, oh, it's that song. And sadly, that is all of Starkey's usefulness, was to load this item on the back of the boat. Because Starkey, while being adorable, combat stats aren't great. So we didn't even need to equip Starkey. You can give him some of the extra strengthens if you want to make that previous boss fight a little bit earlier, because we bought way more than we need. Then we're just going to swap him back for Fargo. So now we've got Surge, Glenn, and Fargo. Fargo is blue elemental, can cast Vigora. We got two very powerful physical damage dealers, and they can do red damage when needed. And we're just going to blast through what's basically a boss gauntlet in the Terra Tower.
You see Andy W finishing off Polis Police. Got a +1 to strength at 37, which is really nice.
I'm also going to point out there's a lot of really interesting and specialized strategies on all of these bosses. Depending on what strength values you're at, manipulating them, trying to skip certain actions from happening. A lot of really good and cool routing went into these fights, but the result is that they all end way faster than we can talk about the routing that's necessary for these fights. So just believe me when I say that this took a lot of time to refine, and a lot of really awesome people put time into making these fights go really quickly, because most of them are going to be about this fast.
Yeah, but the gist is I'm going to do some damage, either Eagle Eye or Strengthen, then either use X Strike or Dash and Slash. Pretty much how we deal with these tour fights.
And
the Surge of Strength, you get to mix it up or make it a little quicker.
Yeah, and some of them have like turns you really don't want to see just because they waste a lot of time. And a lot of it was like figuring out based on what their starting AP was, trying to skip those turns as best we could. And a couple variant strategies and just developing it over time, trying to avoid the long animations you can see from those fights. So if all of those go fast, that means it went well. The worst that you're really going to see on those fights are not really dangerous. Some of them might spam an attack because they like to set the field to be the same color by spamming elements.
So we start the trek into Terra Tower. That first pillar that was knocked down, you want to wait until that shadow enemy is not up against the chasm. So if you were to lower it, then that shadow enemy would just cross the bridge immediately. Oh,
yeah. And these enemies on the stairs are the worst. They've got a way wider hitbox than it looks like. Their hitbox is really weird looking. If you can't see the ground beneath them, it's actually really difficult to see where their hitbox is. And when they're on those narrow staircases, it's just so hard to avoid them. So ideally you want them to hang out on the landings in between the stairs and just stay there.
Yeah, right. At this part of Terra Tower, they're kind of nice. They're just ambling along aimlessly. But there's a specific room where they're really nasty. And we hope the best for all our runners, that they don't have some bad luck there. But in this entire run, I would say you're likely to get 2 encounters if you're very skilled. And one of those encounters is in that room.
Yeah. Some bad luck here for Superhandi. Just landed right next to an enemy. Sometimes you can't avoid that. There's also another completely unavoidable thing that can happen where this room has multiple layers to it, but the way that where it tracks where your character is on screen and the way it tracks detection of an enemy are not the same. So when you're jumping down between multiple layers of a screen, it's possible for Surge to be in the back layer and an enemy be in the front layer, but if Surge crosses over the enemy in the front layer, you still get an encounter. And it's a little bit unfortunate. It's a very rare thing to see, but it looks really weird if it happens.
These flying enemies can be quite difficult to get around. Usually they just, again, they're aimlessly wandering, but occasionally they'll be directly in your path. So it's good to pay attention to their shadow so that you can go around them if you need to, or wait for them if, they just start trolling you.
So generally the way the Terra Tower works is there's a small section, and then you fight one of the Tor bosses, then another small section, another Tor boss. And this is Balthazar, I believe, right?
Hmm?
The person that's locked in Terra Tower.
Oh, I don't know. This guy is a mystery. I think I heard that this was originally going to be like a character that could join your party at this point, but I don't know about that, so it's not confirmed.
I always assumed it was Balthazar since Chronopolis and the dragons went to war.
Yeah, this game has a cast of 44 characters, and originally the development team had plans for a lot more. So maybe if they ever do a remake, we'll be able to see more of what they intended. But, just take what we can get. This game is good enough as it is. Alright, the room is coming up.
The aggressive shadow room. Yeah, for whatever reason, once you progress past this point, the shadows just become very aggressive if they see you. But ADW is coming up on the Fate fight. Got a little bit of exposition before that happens, but hopefully can get the early Magnify off without having to run away like Superhandi did. One of the interesting things is that if you can get into those alcoves behind the water, the shadows can't fit in there. So even if they're blocking you, if you can get in there, you can get around them. Just an unfortunate enemy running into Superhandi there. It is a side effect of the way that the enemy hitboxes interact and the fact that these enemies float off the ground. So that if they touch you even while you're on the ladder, you still get into encounter. And since these are very tall, they can touch you from pretty far down the ladder. You have to get pretty high up that vine to be safe from getting into encounter.
Yeah, Evil Ash pointing out in the chat, this is the worst room in the game.
Yeah,
I think
it's awful.
every single runner would agree. As far as dodging enemies goes, this is kind of a nightmare. It's kind of like the last hurdle for the speedrun. Once you get past this room, you're pretty safe.
The idea here is for this last tier, you see this shadow coming up, and you want this guy to go all the way to the right. If he goes all the way to the right, you can run past him with no problems. But when they're in the middle, it's a hard juggling game of, do you wait for them? Do you go into the alcove and wait, or you just try to dance around them? And they all have their positives and their negatives. And you just kind of have to take some risks or take the time loss, and there's no real way around it.
W screen, Prometheus, aka Robo, dying again.
Yeah, more Fs for Robo in chat. And Superhandi coming up on Pyrotor. One of the interesting things about the Terra Tower is that it's hinting at the good ending of the game. Because for the good ending of the game, you need to progress through a certain series of elements. And there's several different parts of the tower that display these elements in order. But one of them is wrong. And it's a little bit unfortunate. So,
Yeah.
Well, I'd say it can be wrong. Because at the end, when you fight the black and white Tors, the order you fight them in affects the colors that light up on the elevator. So if you fight them in the reverse order, the elevator will light up in the incorrect order. And I don't think that was intended, but all of the other indicators in this area for like the order of the elements are correct. Just the elevator is the one that sometimes lies.
Yeah, since we're running the good ending version of the game, that requires us to use the Chrono Cross in the last battle. And in order to use it effectively, you have to have a certain order of the elements. And they, as Railkin mentioned, they hint at what the order should be, and it can be kind of confusing if according to the mix-ups. But I'll say, casually, I never knew. I just defeated Time Devourer, no Chrono Cross, never saw a good ending. But I didn't know any better, so... I'm sure a lot of people know.
Yellow, red, green, blue, black, white. And the order that you fight these bosses in is a big part of that. Aquator is out of place, so it's not the correct order. But before you get to the end, there's a room with a bunch of crystals lighting up in order. So that you're supposed to take the order of these bosses and the order of those crystals, because it goes yellow, red, green, blue, black, white. Short pause, then it does it again. And it's making the sounds as it does it, playing the jingle that goes with. And the starting off with the yellow and the red boss is supposed to be the other hint of yellow-red is where you start in the sequence. Just in case you wrote down the sequence starting from the wrong color. And I don't know how I always remember that. It's just, I don't know, it stuck with me after I learned it. I didn't learn it casually. I had to look it up. Internet was a useful thing back in the day. And we're approaching another room that can be awful, but not as bad. The shadows like to get in your way, but they're not aggressive anymore. And this is the part where Terra Tower starts getting weird.
Yeah, so it looks like Andy W. I think he was unable to get Saints off, but he was able to finish the Fate fight without too much trouble. So unless I missed it, or unless the Saints went off and it was just very low damage.
Might not have gotten Magnify off before Diminished. You can finish the fight if you don't get Magnify off first, if you've got high strength or high magic, that it still does a good chunk of damage. I missed it because I was watching the horrible enemy dodges as well.
Yeah, so we get a lot more exposition from Balthazar. I always felt cheated whenever he started talking about this. I'm like, you knew from the whole time. You could have told us from Viper Manor what was going on, but he chose not to.
Yeah, and he's explaining the war between the dragons and Chronopolis that happened long ago, and why the dragons want us to defeat fate, and why once we did, they turned into the dragon god and turned against us. The dragons were never helping us, they were using us.
Yeah, I really like the betrayal aspect of the dragons. So I played Chrono Cross before Chrono Trigger, so I had no idea that, reptiles are kind of bad, at least in those games.
Mm-hmm.
So the betrayal of the dragons was a shock. I liked it. It's a good part of the story.
This is where we learn about the Dark Moon Dragon, Harley. And it's funny because Balthazar says the name that you named her is so often in the speedrun. I believe you knew her as H.
H. Yeah. So Closetowar not too far behind from Andy W. He's about to start his fate fight. And I like that at this part where Superhandi just went through the ghostly children. It kind of reminds you, like, hey, you don't have the Chrono Cross? What's wrong with you?
Mm-hmm.
So kind of hinting at, yeah, you can go get that somewhere in the world.
They also have some hints for you on the beach before the final boss, just so you're missing something. So this is one of the more annoying Tor fights. This is one of the ones that likes to spam a bunch of elements to fill the field with the color that it likes. And in an ideal situation, you can avoid that. But it kind of depends on EP rolls and what your strength is.
Oh, nice. Yeah, so because Superhandi was able to do a 2-2-3, he avoided the Motor enemy, was normally uses Info Scope 3 times, which is kind of slow.
Yeah, awful.
If you do enough damage, it just does a heal plus. It's a lot faster.
Yeah, Infoscope is an element, sort of like Scan in Final Fantasy games. So it's a really long animation. Similar to like in the PlayStation Final Fantasies, how it takes its time zooming in and focusing and then displaying info. And it's awful. You don't want to see it 3 times. One of the nice things about these bosses is it's giving us unique elements that we can really only get here, called the field elements. They are they break the rules in that they will turn the field completely one color instantly. But you're much more limited on what slots you can equip them into than other elements.
48 strength for Handy. So there are 3 more fights before the Dragon God. So he's going to be well over 50, which is incredible.
So there's 2 bosses here, and then everyone's going to save before they go fight Aquator, because it would be very foolish not to, because of a bug that we still haven't figured out why it works. Hopefully we can avoid showing it off today.
Yeah.
This is another room with wind in it that can make it hard to navigate. The game is trying to push you into those sentries on the side. And the 2 bosses we have to fight here are white and black. I believe the generally accepted order is you go to Closetowar first, just in case you're short on strength for Gravitor. It used to be more open on which order you did it. You could do whichever one you want, but when they found the high strength strategy for Gravitor, kind of became go fight the white one first, try to get enough strength to be able to fight the black one. If you're short.
Gravitor has some of the best sound effects. I love when he punches anybody because it sounds so cartoony. I don't know if we'd hear it. He likes to kick people or stomp on people. Oh yeah.
Closetowar, getting Saints. Haven't been catching too much of Closetowar, but hopefully set the fight up so that this will do the one shot. Won't have to be scaring us like Andy W did.
Yeah, it might have been just remembering what I saw, but it looked like he was setting up the white field and got interrupted. And then the field again. But I can't confirm that's exactly what I saw.
Yep, that was a lot of damage. That was 4,500.
Yeah. And he had to run away once. Uh-oh. So luckily it's not too bad of a time loss for having to run away once. You can be stuck here for a very long time running away over and over. Oh, okay, so never mind. So Evil Ash reminding me that Closetowar has a different strategy for Fate that I don't understand. But it seems he was able to get that off. Pose without a hitch.
So Luxtor is down, the less scary of the two between Luxtor and Gravitor. Superhandi making his way over to Gravitor, but has more than enough strength to do the fast strat. I believe with enough strength, he can just kill him straight up. Can do the 2-3 instead of the 3-3. Use less AP, have lower chance of having the attacks interrupted. But this will be a large amount of damage from Surge.
Yeah, Gravitor, his attack is Omega Black, and if that hits Surge, it's going to knock him out, which can cost some time. So hopefully it hits anyone else.
If we get a good AP roll, Surge can just kill him, though.
Yeah. But again, the Superhandi does not have the second Dragoon Gauntlet, so he might have to adjust slightly. Might have to do a 3-3 instead of a 2-3.
Yeah, don't use Luminaire. Luminaire is magic based.
Yeah. It does like 500 damage, I think, at this point.
Looks like he is judged that he can get away with the 2-3, probably because he is well over the 47 that's needed.
Nice.
And yeah.
So even without the Dragoon Gauntlet, having just a couple extra strength points, it's sure to victory.
And that's kind of what I was talking about, of where, you know, attack is valuable, but strength scaling is not linear. So even though he's missing the 3 attack from the Dragoon Gauntlet, being at 49 is worth more than like the 3 from the Gauntlet, you know?
Yep. So it looks like the strength train ended there. Superhandi's still at 49 or 48.
Well, we got one more chance to hit 50 before Dragon God. No real benefit to hitting 50, it's just a nice even number.
Yeah, just for the fans. Yeah, after the Dragon God, strength is meaningless. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, to do the good ending, it's more of a puzzle at the end you need to complete, which is why the game is a little bit obtuse about how to do it. If you do the bad ending, you can still do the puzzle and then just not cast Chrono Cross. Because one of the things they did is In order to get the good ending, it requires casting a large number of elements in sequence, which can be very difficult if you don't understand very well how the element system works. So once you've casted the correct colors in order, the AI for Dragon God just stops and will sit there and do nothing. So the speedrun strategy, as I was mentioning before, is you let the Dragon God hit you with a powerful element with Pendragon Sigils, buff your strength, freeze its AI, and then just go to town. Because it'll literally sit there as you do damage to it over and over and over again and never attack back.
So we see Andy W on his way to Terra Tower, just as Superhandi's about to finish Terra Tower.
Yeah, and ending with the blue boss means that it just gets blown up by X-Strike.
Yeah. We've made such good use of X-Strike. We're not done yet.
So the boss coming up after this, Dragon God, is kind of the true final boss in terms of like difficult boss encounter, and it has fantastic music. The way that a lot of this fight works, I'm going to try to explain a bit of it in advance so you can be quiet for part of it and let me hear the music. Is as I mentioned before, it has an HP value per phase, not an overall HP amount you're trying to whittle down. So if you do more than the 1900 so HP per phase, you're just doing extra damage and wasting time. So we've got a lot of things planned out for each phase, not only to try and get through each phase quickly, but to set ourselves up to be in a good position for the next one. We want to have good amounts of stamina, be ready for a stamina refresh. We want to have correct buffs that we want. And every time it phases, the Dragon God's AP value will reset. So if we do this well, once we get past the first phase, a perfect fight with the Dragon God is do damage, phase change, and do enough damage for the next phase change, do enough damage for the next phase change, and just continue onwards until the final phase where you can then finally take out the boss. Yeah. And it's very involved, but the first couple phases are a little bit simpler. We're going to start off with just some damage, and then the order of the phases is again part of the hint, because it starts off in white, and then it goes yellow, red, green, blue, black, white, which is the sequence we need to go in. So we're going to start off basically just doing some physical damage, and then use turn green on Surge, because we'll be going into yellow, and that'll buff Surge moving into the yellow phase.
Yeah, so from what I've seen, at least for Superhandi, he hasn't gotten many 99% chance miss, or hit. Sorry, miss. The 1% chance miss. But this is one fight where you do not want to see a miss on a 99%. It's happened to me a couple times, and it's pretty scary. But as you mentioned, the first phase of this fight is pretty... it's kind of difficult, but after that it eases up. It becomes pretty consistent.
And it's not just because the way you want to prevent the boss from getting a turn why you don't want to miss. It can get just really off the rails if your stamina winds up not where you want it to be. The other big thing, and the reason why you want to save before this fight, is there's a bug that we don't know how it works. If you have good equipment, there is a phase transition drops you, and it should do very little damage. With good equipment, it does 0 damage. But every once in a while, certain memory values get set just the wrong way, and the phase transition attack that normally does 0 damage will do 1,000 to 2,000 damage to every character in the party, and you'll wipe. Occasionally, one of them will survive, and you'll get a chance to run away. But when the bug appears, it will just be a random thing. The Dragon God's transition does way too much damage. We don't understand what causes it, and it'll usually be a wipe. So that is why everyone's saved before this boss fight. And if you're going for a PB and it happens, that's just the end of your run. But we're going to have we're going to have the boss fight starting up here, and everything should be pretty self-explanatory at the first. So I would suggest we give like the first phase or two just to listen to the music, because it's fantastic. at this point, it mostly loops, some extra tensions added here and there, but notice we just eagle-eyed and strengthened Surge, which is very important because as we transition to the next one, we're going to use that Vigora on Surge, and he is hitting extremely hard. You see he's hitting for 1,000 per hit, and that means that with the 1,900 per phase, 2-3 attacks is all we need per phase. So we're going to try and get as much out of this as we can. We can use a turn blue on Surge so he does more damage here. And use the full effect of this Vigor to blast through a couple phases right in a row with just Surge's attack, while he still has the near unlimited Vigor until this effect wears out. It is very important that you don't mash this like you did on Polis, please. You want to hit it, stop, so that once it does enough damage, the Dragon God can interrupt you and phase change immediately and you don't waste too much stamina. Or too much AP, I should say. It's a little bit unfortunate. Surge did what looked to be enough damage, but it didn't phase change, so it's been just shy. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, so ideally you want to have 46 strength for these quick strategies. Again, maybe the Dragoon Gauntlet playing a factor here. The fact that he doesn't have it contributed to the lack of numbers attacks.
Yeah, at this point you're planning on doing a stamina refresh. So what we can do is we can use some healing items just to be safe. Get people low on stamina. And just make sure we're not in too much danger before we do the stamina refresh. Because this phase isn't too dangerous. It's the blue phase. We're not super worried about many of the attacks that the boss can throw at us here. The dangerous attacks from blue phase come pretty late in its turn order. This is really the only scary one, is Omega Blue. So, unfortunately targeted Surge instead of Fargo, who was guarding, and his blue element probably could have survived if it had targeted Fargo. But we have that revive. And once we get everybody back into a good position, the Strengthen and Eagle Eye are already worn off on Surge, so losing that isn't as bad as it seems, because we needed to refresh that Strengthen anyway. And then we can advance with using that Strengthen to get a stamina refresh by using an X Strike, which is exactly what we wanted. So that looked scary, but that actually wasn't bad at all. It was a very good recovery by Superhandi there. So now we're moving on to the white phase, or the black dragon I should say. So now just having Strengthen on Surge, throw the Eagle Eye, he will do a lot of damage by himself, should phase him pretty much instantly with just a couple attacks, the 1-3-3. And then we're back to the starting phase, the white phase, just a little bit more HP to go through. We can use a turn black on Surge so that he will gain the black innate and do a little bit of extra damage. And depending on strength values, I think sometimes people will throw out a Genius to add some black to the field, make Surge do a little bit more damage, but I think he probably has enough damage that's not needed.
Yeah, you can use Fargo to get a little chip damage in. Looks like that's what he's going to do.
And that's the Dragon God fight. routing this out was a gigantic puzzle, and it's gone through several iterations. And there's, once again, I've said this many times, there's a lot of wonderful people in chat watching, put in a ton of work into routing and improving the speedrun for this game. And that was a really big puzzle to put together and try and figure out how to get through that not only quickly, but consistently. So that's basically the final hurdle for Handy. The only things left, we need to go get the Chrono Cross, go fight the Time Devourer, use the elements in the correct order, and then use the Chrono Cross.
Yeah, Superhandi made it to 50.
This was an excellent run by Superhandi as well. Got out with a really good start and carried it pretty well through. I think the only real instance of bad, like really awful luck was the super low Marcy magic and not getting the burn on Dario.
Yeah. He ended up losing a few minutes just to that alone.
Everything else that was kind of bad luck was all, normal stuff you'd expect to see in a run. Stuff not going absolutely perfect.
Yeah, but a lot of things went really well. Like first try key in the ghost ship.
Yeah,
Get
for
good
sure.
Strength growth. A very solid run. See NDW kind of finishing off Terra Tower, dodging some enemies, but after this room it's pretty free. Just a few more fights.
So this is the point where the story gets even stranger, because you've defeated the dragons, you've defeated Terra Tower, it kind of petrifies itself, falls into the ocean. And we find out that Lavos wasn't totally defeated. It wound up merging with some other entity, especially since in this timeline where Lavos isn't defeated by the heroes in Chrono Trigger, and strengthened itself, and it regains the fragment that it lost, the Frozen Flame, and becomes the Time Devourer. So instead of threatening to, consume the planet, it's threatening to consume all of these timelines that we've been seeing. Threatening to basically end existence, and we need to go off and stop the Time Devourer. But when we get there, it should be pretty obvious what Lavos merged with. And Project Kid was part of Chronopolis because of what you're going to see here in this final boss. But before we get there, there is a secret area behind a waterfall that is one of the only areas besides the place where you fight Dario, where you have to walk up to an area and hit the interact button, and it doesn't show an area entrance. You just walk up to this waterfall, you hit X. No text appears telling you where you are. It kind of hints about this with the cutscenes with the Master Immune. Because of this waterfall, you see them walking by in all those cutscenes. You come back here and you have the fragments of both dragon tears from both worlds, and you put them on these pedestals, and you get an element called the Chrono Cross.
Yeah, the text tells you that you should talk to Stina about this. Yeah, don't do that. At least I never did. All you have to do is, as Railcould mentioned, just put the tier of hate and the tier of love together. And because they're two items from two different dimensions that are essentially the same thing, they just fuse together and become the Chrono Cross, which, what is it? That binds two dimensions together, unifies them. That's the word.
The idea is that we have all these fragmented timelines, and somehow, some way, using this to defeat the Time Devourer will put all of these fragmented timelines back together and fix everything that kind of got broken. And implies that, the better results from all the timelines we kind of push together people will get their happy endings. Chrono Cross is one of the unique elements that can be equipped onto any slot. So even though it's a level 8 element, you can equip it to level 1 and it'll be Chrono Cross -7. It actually doesn't matter what level it's equipped onto, except how many element levels it takes to cast it. And if you've been paying attention, we need to cast elements in a certain order to be able to activate the Chrono Cross, and we equipped turn elements of various colors to all of our characters to cover the ones we don't have spells to do that for easily already. So we're going to take this time egg that we got, go back to the other, the homeworld Opasa Beach, and there'll be a different time distortion. We're going to use that time egg over there, and we're going to get this final encounter. We see corporeal versions of the main characters from Chrono Trigger here, and if you don't have the Chrono Cross yet, they kind of hint, hey, you're missing something, you should go take care of that. But then we're going to enter the final boss fight, and one of the important things here is that the final boss loves to interrupt your casting of the elements. He will always start with a green color, so if you try to get clever and start with a yellow and then a red and let him cast the green, Time Devour will be like, nope, I'm not going to do that. And he'll cast a different color just to mess up your sequence. With the Chrono Cross equipped at the top, you'll see that every time you cast, any color element is cast, it'll put a little orb associated with the color, and it'll play a tone. And you're supposed to cast them in the correct order and or recreate the tone if you only notice the jingle. And once you get all 6 in the correct order, the AI will freeze, he'll stop taking actions. Because while you can somewhat easily cast 6 elements in a row, doing 7 without the enemy taking a turn isn't possible. So the enemy's AI has to disable after you get the colors in the correct order, and it gives you the opportunity to cast the Chrono Cross to end things off.
Yeah, so we're coming up on time.
And
so, as Ryokan mentioned, all we have to do is just do the Chrono Cross order, and then that's it. Don't have to do any damage. It's just a puzzle.
And interestingly enough, even if you get the Chrono Cross and you're doing other side quests, the Chrono Cross is still a useful element. It is a pretty powerful heal, and it does a few other things. It's just a useful support element. But when you use it in this fight in particular, in this way, is how you get the good ending. And as you see, there's a girl trapped inside of the Time Devourer. That is Shala. When she was sent off into the void after the Mammon Machine was destroyed. That's time. Not yet. Not yet. There we go. Time. She fused with Lavos after the timeline changed. And there's a couple different theories as to why she's blonde instead of having purple hair. I don't know if any of them are official. But that is Shala. And Kid was a clone of Shala that was created by Chronopolis.
Yeah, so GG's for Superhandi and Team Ozzie. To be honest, the winners of this relay. It's a nice soundtrack.
So if you do the bad ending, you just get the credits. You don't see the sequence of Shayla being freed from Time Devourer. But when you do the good ending, there's a little couple bonuses on the credits, and then an extra scene at the end. But unfortunately, using fast disk speed on the PS2 kind of glitches out the graphics of the credits a little bit. So you'll still be able to see what's going on, but they'll be blinking and flashing a little bit. So if you do have photosensitivity, I would recommend being careful about that and taking care of yourself, as the images will kind of be flashing in and out. It's not a full screen flashing, but it is definitely there. As I see people starting a hype train in Handy's chat, it's a good time to remind everybody, support the runners for the entire relay, everybody who's been involved with this. Even the people working behind the scenes are really cool people. So Keetketchum, Redslash, Halation, 840 Rigs, Elgranjerry, Dyne, Nuitari, Closetowar, Superhandi, ADW. Everybody hopes to commentate. High Spirits who's helping stream. All fantastic people. Go support them.
Yeah, and if anyone's interested in learning any of the speed runs for Chrono Trigger, Medical Dreamers, or Chrono Cross, they're all unified on our Discord, so feel free to join. Everyone's pretty... sorry, getting tired. Everyone's pretty helpful and kind, so don't be afraid.
And this was our first Chrono Relay. It's something we've been kind of wanting to do for a while, but a lot of people aren't into Radical Dreamers, so we managed to get this together. I'm glad it happened. I was expecting a closer ending, but Superhandi is too good at the game, I guess. And does that mean that Handy broke the Power Glove curse?
Yeah.
I was holding off on saying that for 7 hours. I want you to appreciate that. Well, not full 7, but like 6.5. That's the first run that I've personally seen that got the Power Glove from Karsh and didn't crash and burn at the end. For people asking in chat, no, that was not a PB. Handy has a 650, I believe, 650 something. He posted in chat saying that was a 654. Would have been pretty close if he'd gotten a high magic Marcy, probably. Because you really do lose a lot of time, Dario. What was that? So after the credit sequence, after this, you wake up, Lena's here, and it kind of implies that everything's normal again. Lena doesn't remember anything that happened. Nothing that happened after you disappeared. And it's like, wait, did you just dream this? And then the credits and the post-credit sequence shows that no, this was not a dream. The timelines have been fixed. All the pieces of the fragmented timelines have been put back together. And all of the fragmentation that was caused by Lavos has been restored, and Lavos has finally been truly banished.
I always felt bad that Surge's reward is that his memories are wiped. So he has no memory of what happened afterward. So, felt that was a bit of a downer, but everything ended up all right.
It's funny though, because especially in the context of the speedrun where we ignore an abandoned kid constantly, it ends on the note of, I'm sure we'll meet again somewhere, at another place, another time. We will find a way. Kind of talking between Kid and Surge. And we really didn't have that connection with Kid this run because we abandoned her for speed.
Yeah, she says, take care, my friend. I'm like, we're not friends. Not even close.
But if we look over to our other two before credits start, it looks like Andy W is just saving before Aquator. Gonna be going into Aquator and then Dragon God pretty soon. Closetowar is making his way up towards Luxator and Gravitor, so not that far behind. And you see, this is where the graphics start to flash. It is a little bit inconsistent playthrough to playthrough. Sometimes these movies will flash more than others. So even though Handy's doesn't seem to be bugging out too badly, if you are photo sensitive, I do recommend being careful. Because sometimes when it goes really bad, it can flash at very high speeds and be more of a drastic on and off flashing motion. And this is just a after effect of fast disk speed because it really helps with the load times significantly. So Andy's about to do the X strike here, I believe. Taking some extra hits onto Aquator because his strength isn't quite as high. Might result in an extra turn from Aquator, but Aquator will just spam some physical attacks. You don't have to worry quite as much about the annoying elements. But as you can see, it does a lot of damage. Can kill one of your characters pretty quickly if you get unlucky on the damage rolls. But the X strike is going to do about 80%, maybe 75% of its health. I don't remember how much its max health is. So that plus the extra hits beforehand is more than enough to take out Aquator.
I think Aquator has 2940, 2,000, almost 3,000 health.
Mm-hmm. And what is Andy's final strength moving in? 44 exactly.
Nice.
Oh my goodness. Right, so that's just enough for the strategies, the baseline strategies for time or Dragon God to work. NDW is not going to have to move on to the backup strats. This is pretty much the only fight in the game that gets significantly different if you have low strength. But as we mentioned earlier, there is a completely second document written about how to do the Dragon God fight if you've got lower than 44 strength. So if you are wanting to look to get into this speed run, the documentation and the notes are fantastic and really help out with the learning curve.
This looks like after Closetowar, Closetowar is at 43 strength. So we could catch up to 44 pretty easily, and maybe even be 45. Or he could get a +2 and get to 46. But, let's see.
Everybody is clearly explaining my mistake on looking at the wrong screen again because I'm tired, because apparently I'm from a different timeline. I will accept this explanation because it means it's not my fault then. So once again, we've got the Dragon God coming up for NDW. First couple phases are pretty simple. Just try to grind through the HP, and then you want to just progress through the phases as smoothly as you can. Inevitably, when you don't get a perfect fights on the Dragon God are very rare. You just have to evaluate how dangerous of a phase are you on, and what is the best way to try and get back on track. Because some of the phases, it's better to push really hard and just get to the next phase as fast as possible, because they do their dangerous spell casts very quickly. And some of the other phases, depending on what color dragon it is, will take a little bit longer to get there. So you have some time to maybe try and fix your stamina, heal up a little bit, and then keep going. And NDW has a ton of experience doing this fight under many different circumstances, marathon runs, low strength, has had to do a lot of recovery on this fight. But we should hopefully see a pretty good fight here. Sometimes the Dragon God makes it out of your control, though, so I don't want to jinx too much. So for people, I see a few people talking in chat that they tuned in recently. So if you didn't catch the first explanation on the Dragon God, this boss is a little bit different. There's not a total health pool. There is a very large health pool that you cannot get through the entire thing. And instead, it just tracks how much damage you've done on each phase. And when you do about 1900, it will then trigger the next phase. So the total health of the Dragon God does not represent how much health it has left. It is just 1900 health per phase. 7 phases. Try to get through it as cleanly as you can. And it's why at certain points you'll see that ADW stops mashing. He just hits an attack, waits, hits another attack, because he doesn't want to use excess stamina or AP, because if he mashes attacks, it can delay the transition, and then that's just wasted damage. It's not benefiting you in any way.
Yeah, a lot of the scary parts of the Dragon God are early on, because once you can set up there, afterward, you just kind of plow through all the phases, assuming you don't miss.
Yeah, especially once you get this Vigora strengthen situation going. Start off with just the Vigora and a turn blue, but once you progress past this phase, we'll drop a I believe it's after this phase. Yeah. Although they already have the Strengthen and Eagle Eye going for a little bit. So then we transition into the green phase. Strengthen and the Eagle Eye will wear off. We'll try to get through the green phase with the rest of Vigora. Then we renew the Strengthen and use that to carry through the end. You see the long pause between each one, wanting to make sure, absolutely certain, that you're giving the Dragon God an opportunity to phase change when you've done enough damage. I do appreciate that Andy named Surge Flea. The team pride showing off. You'll notice that when this fight goes the way you want it, with no hitches, everybody's at 0 or negative stamina there, so we get a stamina refresh on the blue phase. They just refreshed the Strengthen as well, so we've got the Strengthen going into the black phase. Surge is white innate, so we'll do a lot of damage to the Black Dragon God, which is giving him a little bit more feedback, and get that Eagle Eye back going, and we're pretty much almost done with the Dragon God. Okay, so Andy is confirming in chat that he accidentally mashed through the green phase, and that's what led to the tornado. I was like, I was certain you did enough damage, but I wasn't watching you input the attacks, so I didn't catch that you mashed the attacks on accident. So now we're on the final phase for Andy W on Dragon God, right as Closetowar is about to start the fight. Turn black, and then he uses the Genius because his strength isn't too super high. Just adds more black onto the field, so these attacks will do more damage. So that is pretty much the last hurdle cleared for Andy W. Just has to do the same cleanup that Andy did. Go off, get the Chrono Cross, go to the end of time and fight the Time Devourer again. Most important thing, another thing every runner has done, you go get the Chrono Cross, you go to the beach, you start the fight, you realize you didn't equip the Chrono Cross. Everybody's done it at least once.
Yes. Yeah. So you run away because you can run away from every fight just about then go equip it.
Yeah, it's funny because it gives you like this, are you sure you want to cross between the gulfs of time and space to confront the Time Devourer? Like, gives you the point of no return confirmation window, and then you run away and you reappear on the beach.
Yeah, you're all fine. That's one of the things that makes this run very beginner friendly. As I mentioned before, as you learn the game, as you get more runs in, it actually becomes a little bit more difficult as it goes on, because you start understanding a lot more of the mechanics that aren't as obvious. So it's one of the more enjoyable things about running this game, at least in my opinion.
You know, I'm realizing now that I get to the end of the run that I said earlier in the run that Handy is relatively new in this game. And that's just my bias of having run this game for so long. I'm realizing that no, actually it's 2020 and Handy's been running for a couple years now. I'm just showing that I'm an old man, don't worry about it. Handy was nice and didn't correct me in chat apparently because I'm an old man. To be fair, for me, people who've been running this for like 2 years or so, that's new to me, dang it. But we've got the final Dragon God going. Closetowar got past the first couple phases, which are the hardest ones, and should be alright. Just as long as, especially going into the green phase, that's where Strengthen and Eagle Eye run off, and you have Vigora. It's the easiest time to make the mistake of mashing. Especially since you only use Vigora twice in the run, and it's so fun to just go ham mashing the X button, because you can. But you have to resist the temptation. And of course, Closetowar mashes out a couple attacks instead of doing it one at a time, just because he knows how many he can get away with mashing. And it looks scary every time he does that. Because I can't tell how many he mashed, because they just go through. But he's past that part, so we should be good now.
W picking up the Chrono cross, all caps.
Yes, it is important that it's in all caps. It's one of the only elements that is. The old strategy for the Dragon God used to involve more stamina refreshes and using a summon on the red phase and trying to be more consistent about it, but the problem was the stamina refreshes led to inconsistency, but also using the summon was slow. So these new strategies are really, really nice. You only need the one stamina refresh now. As long as you don't overmash, this fight has become very consistent.
Yeah, shoutouts to everybody who worked on routing the game, both in terms of fights, just figuring out a decent route to be very consistent. It's really fun to run this game because of all the work that's been put into it.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a long run, but I personally very much enjoy the pace of it because there's a good mixture of like enemy dodging, boss fights, Don't have to worry about random encounters too much.
Yeah, the length of time can be a problem for people who are interested in learning, but you know, it's not so bad. There are plenty of places for breaks. Like if you need to take restroom breaks during the run, there's that. But yeah, to each their own. And you don't have to run like the full category. You can do like a links 1%, a links 2. Just set your own goal.
Yep.
Just have
And
fun.
there is the Dragon God for Closetowar. So everybody has cleared the final hurdle. Right as Andy W is entering the fight with the Time Devourer. Once again, it's tempting to try and use the Time Devourer to help you out, since the Time Devourer normally starts with a green element. Andy W just ran away. Did he forget to equip the Chrono Cross right after I was talking about that?
Well, happens to the best of us.
But as I was saying, it's tempting to cast yellow-red and let Time Devourer do green. But if you do that, the Time Devourer will cast a different color and ruin your sequence. Oh, he's just teasing us.
Oh,
Okay, we just got memed on by Andy.
well,
Thanks, Andy.
thanks, Andy.
He got me.
Yeah, so the Time Devourer has 10 AP, and generally, if you can get off Surge's 1-1-1, so 3 points off, the Time Devourer can use its element. It usually starts with a green element, and you should be good. If it somehow interrupts you early on, like between the 1-1 or after the 1-1, it's better just to defend after you build up your stamina, just to let it go again. That way you don't accidentally get interrupted again.
Yeah. Especially since we don't really bring a whole lot of extra level 1 elements to do this with. So if you get interrupted and he disrupts the sequence, you're going to have to run away.
Yep.
And that's time for Andy.
GG's to Andy W. It's like Team Flea comes with second place.
Closetowar is close to finishing up the post-cut Dragon God cutscene dump. Just has to go grab the Chrono Cross, run to the beach, and finish things off. Just want to say, not only for everybody who participated, big thanks to people behind the scenes who made this happen. Dyne was a big part of planning this out, did a lot of work. Big shout outs to him. And High Spirits for helping run the stream today, being a hero for this, 11, 12 hour stream, and was probably here before the stream went live for a significant amount of time. Give High Spirits some love and chat. And of course, RPG Limit Break for letting us put this on their channel so more people could see these games that we really enjoy.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
So yes, Lena did get her Komodo scales. At the start of the game, we gave it to her before we got sucked into the other world. And there's actually a reference to that pretty shortly here on Andy W's screen. when Surge wakes up and is confused, and she's like, "What are you talking about? We were just talking after you gave me the scales." It would be pretty funny though if like he never gave it to them, and he reaches in his pocket to find the scales, and they're gone.
Oh god.
And then Lena gives him the look. You didn't even bring the scales.
Yeah, Lena's a bit pushy, but she does have a heart of gold. But yeah, that would be pretty great. Like a nice, good ending.
It'd be a fun comedic ending if that was how it went. But here we go. Closetowar just got the Chrono Cross.
A Chrono Cross.
Remembered to equip it. I was paying attention this time, so you can't bait me like Andy did.
He did it. He did the thing.
And of course, people talking about alternate endings, just like Chrono Trigger, there are a lot of endings in this game. One of the really cool things about Chrono Cross casually is that it's got all of the alternate endings that you tended to do by going through New Game Plus. But Chrono Cross has a feature called Continue Plus, where you load a save file you made in the previous playthrough as if it was New Game Plus. So you start a New Game Plus file from halfway through the game or wherever you made the save. And if you're planning to play this casually and you want to like look at all the endings, you can make the endings in advance. You make the saves in advance, load them up with Continue Plus, and just see the endings in rapid fire like that. It's a much faster way of going through and getting your endings than having to do a new instance of New Game Plus every time.
Yeah, I love games where they give you a lot of replay value, and Chrono Cross does not disappoint on that front.
It's one of those things where a lot of people, even if they've seen the option for Continue Plus, don't really know what it means or why it would be useful. But that's the main use of it. Just make your saves, load them up in Continue Plus, and you can get all of your endings without having to play the game on New Game Plus like 13 or 14 times. And yes, that is how the all characters run works, because there's an item in Sprig's house, if you go back with the Chrono Cross, where every character that's been in your party when you've defeated Time Devourer, that's save files on your memory card, will be added to your party. So you use Continue Plus, you defeat Time Devourer several times with different parties, equipping characters, or recruiting characters that you missed, and then you go back to Sprig's house, use the Chrono Cross, you wind up with all of the characters in your party, you go defeat Time Devourer, and that is the all characters run. It's like 9 to 10 hours. It's long, but you know, considering the length of any percent, it's not a huge additional time sink.
Yeah, it's interesting to say the least. I know I've never gotten all characters before, and I know I'm interested eventually to look at it.
And time coming up pretty shortly here for Closetowar. Just need the white and then the Chrono Cross, and that's time.
GG.
Once again, big shoutouts to Closetowar. Ran into the boat soft lock, kept going like a champion, loaded up a save. That kind of thing can just be crushing when it happens during a run by itself, but having it happen during an event. Really good to just keep going for the sake of the relay, and big thanks. Nobody would have blamed you if you just called it there.
If I may step in for a moment. Hello everyone, this is Andy W3321, and I just want to reiterate some thank yous. Big thanks to Jerry and Dyne. Early this summer, we started talking about having the Chrono Trilogy relay. This has been way overdue. We finally had enough runners for Radical Dreamers to be able to do this, and those two individuals certainly helped quite a bit with the setup of this marathon. Once we had the initial setup, we brought in Evil Ash and Redslash, so we had a nice balance of all the communities to kind of set and establish a standard so that future relays could all be similar. And then, as Roku mentioned, at that point, we didn't have too much experience running a marathon, and we brought in Railcoon to help with that, as well as High Spirits graciously donating their times. It was really, really appreciated, especially High Spirits in the middle of prepping for Questing for Glory to dedicate a day. We really appreciated that. And of course, I can't forget all of our runners. Y'all did a terrific job, and it was a lot of fun to watch y'all play. And I look forward to more relays in the future. And certainly, I hope that everyone gives a chance to give all the runners and commentators a follow. And if that's not your thing of necessarily going to follow everyone, just go in their chat one day and say, hey, I caught that relay and that was awesome. That would really make their day. So again, thank you all so much.
This is Jerry. I just want to say that again. Thank you to everybody who helped us organize this. Not to repeat too much of what has been said, I just want to say we have some great communities in Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, and Radical Dreamers. Both Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross, which are the more technical games, have amazing guides and lots of help. So if you want to learn the game, we have some pretty nice communities. Just join us in the Discord. There's a lot of people there. A lot of people have been learning the games recently, and you can always get help there. Learn the games, make some friends, just have a good time with the speedruns. So I hope to see you there. Thank you very much, everybody.
I'm Dyne Nuitari. Sorry you have to listen to my voice again, but this event, it's been long overdue. It was a little stressful for us never doing this before, but as Andy said, with help from Railcoon and High Spirits, they've definitely eased the burden off of us, and definitely hastened all the errors we made in the beginning. But it was nice to get the community together for something like this now that it's possible. It was a huge success. Everyone that stuck around for the whole thing, we greatly appreciate it. All the runs were good. All the runs, the race ended not as close as we thought, but it was still a really good race, showcased by amazing runners. Commentary was on point. So I really look forward to trying to do another one next year. So with that, I'm going to find a raid target. Someone that's been camping in chat, Cordelium's, just started a Chrono Cross run. If you haven't had enough, you're just going to have a little bit more. We'll go raid Connor Cord. Once again, just thank you everyone for this. Thanks to the community. We're hoping we can keep this going. So with everything, thank you everyone for have yourself a good night. Be safe, and we'll hope to see you around. Oh yes. Everyone tune in for that and give us all the monies.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, raid